afternoon, Commission members that are online. Can you hear us? Thank you.
Yes,
Thank
I
you
can.
very much. Thank you very much.
Yes, I can. Yep.
Thank you very much, everyone, for your patience. As you can see, we're off-site today, so we just had to get all of the technical devices working today. I'd like to welcome you all to the WA Planning Commission Significant Development Part 17 meeting, to those in person and online today. This meeting is being live streamed and is available for viewing via the Commission's website and YouTube. In starting the meeting, I'd like to acknowledge that we're meeting on the lands of the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation and pay our respects to Elders past and present. I'd also like to acknowledge in the room today we have the Member for Churchlands, Basil Zemplis, MLA. Welcome, Basil. I'd like to acknowledge... Thank you. I'd like to acknowledge Mayor Gary Mack and councillors of the town of Cambridge. And I'd also like to welcome all of the residents from the town of Cambridge, interested parties, deputies, the applicant and consultant team. Just in terms of housekeeping, many of you may be familiar with the Boulevard Centre as local residents, but for those who are not, toilets and water are available in the foyer. Emergency exits are out this door. This afternoon's meeting of the Commission is to determine a significant development under Part 17 of the Planning and Development Act 2005. Part 17 does bestow upon the Commission extraordinary discretion with respect to a development application. However, under the Act, the Commission must have due regard for the purpose and intent of the local planning strategy, scheme and local planning policies, the need to ensure orderly and proper planning and the preservation of the amenity of a locality, the need to facilitate development in response to the effects of COVID-19 and any relevant regional planning schemes, state planning policies and any other relevant WAPC policy. As with any planning application, the Commission has the option to approve the application subject to conditions, to defer the determination where the Commission believes that there is insufficient information before them today to make the decision, or to refuse the application. This is a considerable responsibility for the Planning Commission and it is one that we take very seriously. I wish to advise observers that Commission members may be referring to technical devices such as laptops and phones throughout the course of the meeting to assist them in considering the information before them. In conducting this meeting, the Planning Commission does understand the high level of public interest in this matter, and as a result, the following steps have been taken. Additional time was provided for publication of the agenda report and time to receive deputation requests, with all deputation requests accommodated. Arrangements have been made for a local venue within the town of Cambridge to provide ease of access to deputies and additional public gallery space. We have 224 members of the public here today. And of course, our meetings are live streamed to ensure that this meeting has as broad an audience as possible. I thank members of the public for your dedicated engagement on this matter and for your participation in community consultation. Commission members have received each and every submission in full, submitted through public consultation as part of the documentation before them today. I'll now go to item 1.2, which is apologies and leave of absence. So attending in person today, you have myself, Chairperson Cole, we have Commissioner Adair, Commissioner Sandry, Commissioner Bennett and Commissioner Brooks, and to my left is Ms Sam Bocher, the WAPC Secretary. Item 1.3, disclosure of interests. In relation to the item that we're dealing with today, we have received a disclosure from Commissioner Shears, which is an actual impartiality interest, in that Commissioner Shears has advised that her employer, the City of Stirling, provided a referral response on this item, and as a result, Commissioner Shears is not attending and participating in the meeting today. Disclosures of representation. Members, have there any disclosures of representation to declare? That is where they have been contacted by the consultant team or the applicant ahead of the meeting, so there are none. And item 1.5, declaration of due consideration. Can all members please indicate that they have read and considered the agenda ahead of today's meeting? Thank you. Item 1.5.1, questions from members and responses from the department staff. I note that the Commission has submitted numerous questions ahead of this meeting today, and extensive additional information has been provided to Commissioners for decision-making purposes on the following: the provision of the full agenda report of the Town of Cambridge Council meeting of the 17th of September 2024, outlining the town's assessment of the development application and recommendation to the WAPC. The Town of Cambridge decision in relation to the Kilper Court partial road closure request, signed consent letters for the applicable landowners to this development application area and certificates of title, legal advice on the Cambridge Endowment Act's Lands Act, which is subject to legal privilege, the Transport Impact Assessment and Traffic Technical Notes, the Town of Cambridge's further comments in relation to traffic and access, a full copy of the applicant's sustainability strategy, an environmental memorandum and Chewett Woodlands advice from Western Environmental, arborist report and amended landscape plan. We are now at deputations and presentations, and I welcome deputees today. We have 17 in-person deputations, and we have also received 7 written deputations which are within the agenda information and available to you all. During the in-person deputations, I just do want to be clear that we will be hearing diverse perspectives today, and I really do call upon all of you to allow these to be shared in a respectful environment and without interruption. Each deputy has been provided with 3 minutes to speak, and where deputation presentations have been combined and involve multiple speakers, additional time has been provided. To manage the meeting appropriately, I will require deputies to speak within their allocated time frame. This meeting is a formal meeting of the WA Planning Commission. It is run in accordance with meeting procedures which are underpinned by principles of orderly conduct, courtesy and respect, and I do ask that we all adhere to this as we move through the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. And I also welcome everyone that's here today in order to present a deputation. As the Chair has outlined, you have been allocated 3 minutes to deliver your deputation this morning, or alternatively advised of an extended time where deputations have been combined. I will invite you to the table in front of the panel here this morning or this afternoon to deliver your deputation, and a timer will appear on a screen beside me which will count down the allocated time. You will hear 2 alert tones, one with 30 seconds remaining and one when your time has concluded. So we'll start this afternoon by welcoming the deputation at item 2.1, which is E. Louise Blignort.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, you might want to move it just a little bit closer.
How's that?
That's great, thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity to be heard today. My name is Louise Blichnote, and I have resided with my husband in City Beach for the last 27 years. Today, I represent the owners of 32 dwellings that are a 30-metre stone's throw from the proposed development's western boundary. We strongly object to this development and urge the Commission to refuse it. We believe there is a development solution that truly benefits the community and all adjoining neighbours. This proposal is not that solution. We know that the Commission need only give due regard to the planning framework, that the Commission has the power to exercise an extraordinary amount of discretion in its decision-making. With great power comes great responsibility. Those with significant power, which is each of you, have a moral obligation to use that power wisely and ethically for the benefit of others. Prior to COVID-19, small voices of individuals were aggregated into a community power that could influence the decision-making of its town and elected councillors. That community power had bearing on the vision and evolution of its locality. Today, the power of the town and the community is vested in you. So we ask you to assess this proposal through the lens of the community, through our lens. It is with this lens and it is with this perspective and the moral imperative bestowed on you that we ask you to exercise your power with the genuine respect for the community's real concerns and to ensure that the community is given the weight it deserves in your determination of this proposal. The community wants this precinct, but this proposal is not the right solution. Determining the vision and future character of this locality is not the purview of a private sector, profit-driven property developer which has an actual conflict of interest. The right and that privilege should remain with the town and us, the community that live in the locality. Contrary to what the developer repeatedly and publicly states, this development is not community-driven and it is not aligned with the town's strategy. The proposal forces an unwanted fundamental change on the character of the locality. It changes our environment in a radical way. It is not benign. It imposes itself in an extreme way and without genuine care for the community or any attempt to resolve its adverse impacts on the livability of us as immediate adjoining neighbours. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Louise. Thank you, everybody. We don't normally have applause at our commission meetings, but I understand the desire, so if you could just keep it short and to the end, thank you.
The next deputation this afternoon is on item 2.2, which is David Kessel. Mr. Kessel, we do have your PowerPoint presentation, so if you'd just like to control it with the clicker there in front of you as that appears on the screen. Sorry, just bear with us a moment while we just resolve a technical issue. Okay, I think that's resolved, so over to you when you're ready. Thank you.
I don't think it's not
Oh,
indexing.
that's not working? Can we just, there we go.
It's a little lag.
There might be
Okay.
there might be a small lag on that.
Oh, all right, there is. Yep, just give me a second, please.
I can confirm your timer hasn't started yet.
Yep, I
Just
just
while we're
need to get
resolving
back
these
now.
issues, yeah. So my team can probably get it back if we just stop.
All right, sorry,
Yeah,
hang on.
it's right. If you just stop clicking,
No,
we'll
I'm
try.
pressing the wrong button.
That's right.
Who's pressing buttons?
No?
Maybe we just ask you just for a moment, Mr. Kessel, if you wouldn't mind just not pressing any buttons.
All right, it's correct now. It's correct. That's where I want to start.
Oh, that's where you want to
I
start?
wanna Yep.
Okay, yep, so over to you when you're ready. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm David Kessel, and this is my deputation about the total lack and disregard of the impact of the North Tower on the Western Boundaries low-density pocket, including the 50 dwellings within the 3 Muse group of dwellings. The 11 and 23-storey towers are pushed back onto the Western Boundary to minimise the impact on the eastern side. No setback has been provided on the Western Boundary. Only the existing narrow nature strip with shrubs and medium-sized trees separate the area and is completely inadequate. Many more dwellings, as you can see on the left, will be adversely affected compared to the eastern side. The infill targets for the whole precinct is 200 to 250 apartments and not the development site. Therefore, the 247 apartments is far more than intended by the town guidelines for a medium density development. As you can clearly see, the already dominant communication tower is dwarfed by both towers. At 77 meters tall, the North Tower will be 2.5 times higher and at least 30 times wider than the communication tower. This represents a concrete and glass bulk and mass of approximately 4,000 square meters from the ground level upwards facing the west. Therefore, balconies will evade our privacy and compromise our personal space. Cross views line of sight, loss of open skies, and overshadowing, all key factors in the massing studies that Blackburn used to reject their design options, will be forced upon the Mews. Why the double standards? The North Tower will forever change our skyline, blocking out nearly 4,000 square metres of blue skies with an imposing concrete building overlooking our dwellings and private communal pool. The overshadowing studies only considered the eastern side and south of Hull Road. The western boundary overshadowing diagrams do not illustrate the extent of loss of morning sun extending to Perina Way. The sun will only retract to the nature strip by late morning, leaving many dwellings and the swimming pool without sunlight. Due to the total lack of illustrations either publicly advertised, contained in the WAPC report and in the media, not depicting the view from the western side locality, this is a rough visual mock-up of the towers in relation to the Mews. This is indicative of the total lack of transition from a 77-metre tall tower to typically single and double-storey dwellings is shocking, and is impossible not to have a major impact on the livability of the western neighbouring community. For a first world state, how can we have such a poor planning outcome? Therefore, we respectfully request the WAPC to equally represent the majority voices of all the community adversely affected by this redevelopment, to reject this application. In doing so, the WAPC will define a vision and the future character of this locality in accordance with the town guidelines and majority of this community. There is a solution, but this proposal is not it. Thank you.
Thank you very much,
Thanks
Mr.
for your
Kessel.
attention.
As you've probably noticed, we're having a few issues with our timer. So what I will do is I'll invite the next person. I'll let you know at 2 minutes 30 that you have 30 seconds remaining, and then I'll let you know at 3 minutes.
Sorry, the next deputation this afternoon is at item 2.3, and we welcome Louise Satori. And Louise was going to be joined by Helen McNeill this afternoon, but she's a late apology.
Louise, we had combined your deputations and you had requested 4 minutes. Do you still need the 4 minutes for your deputation?
I don't think so.
Okay, thank you. Are you ready? Oh, sorry, don't want to rush you. You might just want to move the microphone just a little bit closer. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Louise Sartori. I represent the Ocean Village Action Group and I reside in Dilkaraway, City Beach. 71.6%, almost 3 out of 4 people do not support Blackburn's proposal in its current format. The SDAU themselves fully acknowledge that they are going against the overwhelming majority of people that made submissions. Its sheer bulk and scale is out of character for the area, and for this reason, we overwhelmingly oppose it in the current form. We have been subjected to repeated misleading claims about community consultation and alignment with the 2021 local planning strategy. As recently as yesterday, Paul Blackburn was quoted in the West Australian as saying that it is a community-driven project that aligns with the town's local planning strategy and that it preserves the area's character. The LPS does call for 200 to 250 dwellings, but this applies to a site 1.5 times larger than what Blackburn owns. The LPS also calls for maximum 6 stories, which fact he conveniently omits. It does not call for 10, let alone 22-story high towers. We also disagree vehemently that we have been consulted about this development application in a direct and transparent manner. The proposal by Blackburn was not informed by community consultation consultation at all. Up until mid-2024, we only had information about the town's plans for a development up to 6 stories maximum. At that time, we were completely blindsided by a full-blown proposal for a high-rise and super high-rise, and given only 1 month to respond. This proposal is not supported by the community. It fails to respect local planning and ignores better alternatives. Given the concerns outlined in submissions, we urge the Commission to reject this proposal in its current form. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Louise, excuse me, Louise, before you go, sorry, I do need to just see if the Commission members have any questions for you, if you'd be prepared to take questions. Are there any questions? And Commission members also did neglect to ask the same for David Kessel and Louise Blignort. Were there any questions for the previous deputies?
Yeah, I do.
Yes.
Chair.
I do as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for your deputation. So you may be able to respond to my question, but perhaps also Mr Kessel as well. So I understand, having been out on site, the homes that are adjoining the surrounding open space, there's fences to those homes and many of them have gates. Are you able to speak a little bit about how the local residents interface with that open space and use the adjoining open space?
I'm not from Perino Way, so I wonder if if Louise would like to respond.
Louise, would you like to come forward? Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
The residents of the 3 mews, which is the total of 50 dwellings on that western boundary, do make use of the mews as gates into the parkland, and particularly on that western boundary. So it's a regular, the people of the mews frequent the parklands, walk their dogs, etc., on a regular basis. So, yeah.
Thank you. And do all of the dwellings that adjoin with a fence have a gate that accesses into that space?
Not all of them, but each mews does, and some individual residences have also put a gate to that parkland, that pathway. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Commissioner Dare? No? Any other questions, Commissioners, for the first 3 deputies?
It is just worth pointing out that all of those properties that would face the development, their outdoor living areas, their bedrooms, their lounge rooms, would face the development.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
The next deputation this afternoon is item 2.4, and we welcome Elizabeth Durney.
You ready to go?
Great, yes.
Thank you.
Yep. Yeah, my name is Elizabeth Durney. I'm a local GP and resident of the town of Cambridge. I grew up in the area and my parents will be directly impacted by this development. I would just like to start by saying that the community is not against development. We welcome development of this site and support 250 new homes being built, providing housing options for retirees and young people. I understand that the state government is trying to expedite development, but the question is, at what cost? It is impossible to reconcile this development with the state's own planning policy principles, which states that new development should integrate into their landscape, ensure that the mass and height is appropriate for the setting, and mitigate the potential for negative amenity impacts on private land. Furthermore, the local planning strategy states that all too often the character of historic suburban precincts is diminished or extinguished by incompatible development, which is not reflective or respectful of the character of surrounding built form or streetscapes. It is certainly fair to say that a 22-storey, 77-metre residential high-rise is not reflective or respectful towards the current garden suburb character of City Beach. For the reasons listed above, among many others, this proposal has been rejected by the town of Cambridge, the City of Stirling, and over 70% of respondents in a recent community consultation process. How is it possible that opinions are canvassed, legitimate concerns are raised, and then they are summarily ignored. What is the purpose of the WAPC if it doesn't adhere to the principles of its own planning policies or local planning strategy? To illustrate where we currently sit, building height limits in Bondi Beach are 13 metres, with height bonuses up to 18 metres for developments that provide affordable housing. These height limits exist, and I quote, to preserve the current and desired future character of the area. So what is the WAPC and state government trying to achieve for City Beach? Is the Ocean Village site the new surfers' paradise? Are we aiming for a Bondi Beach feel? Do we want to protect the existing garden suburb character? At present, the vision is very unclear. The residents of City Beach are within their rights to demand an orderly and transparent planning process based on a long-term vision for the suburb. Instead, we are being presented with ad hoc developer-led infill that capitalises on unimpeded ocean views to deliver windfall profits for the developer. So I respectfully request that the WAPC rejects this development in its current form, engages in an orderly and transparent planning process, and provides clear parameters for developers consistent with a long-term vision for the suburb.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Before you go, would you be open to taking questions? I'll just see if there are any questions for you. Commission members, are there any questions for Elizabeth? No, but we thank you for your deputation.
Thanks very much, Amy. I think we've got our time back.
Okay.
The next deputation is at item 2.5, and we welcome Adrian Corp. Thank you.
Thank you, Commission. My name is Adrian Corp. I am a local resident and ratepayer. I'm proceeding on the basis that you have read my submission. The crux of the submission is that the WAPC need to be aware that, apart from development approval under the Planning and Development Act 2005, separate and distinct development approval is required to be obtained for development on this site from the town of Cambridge under the Cambridge Endowment Lands Act 1920. This power is not delegated to the Commission. As the town of Cambridge does not support the application, regardless of whether you approve the development application under the Planning and Development Act 2005, it cannot be implemented. As a consequence, I request that you defer consideration to allow the applicant to submit and the town to consider an application under the Cambridge Endowment Lands Act 1920, as it will, by necessity, involve amendments to what is before you today for consideration. As an alternative, if you are inclined to approve the application today, I request that you specifically include an advice note making it abundantly clear that your development approval is only issued pursuant to the Planning and Development Act 2005, and that it does not constitute development approval under the Cambridge Endowment Lands Act 1920. Separate and distinct approval under the Cambridge Endowment Lands Act 1920 is required to be obtained from the town of Cambridge. That's a shock, isn't it?
Thank you. I will just see whether there are any questions. We do have a question for you from Commissioner Herron.
Sure.
Go ahead, Commissioner Herron.
Yes, thank you for your submission. I just wanted to confirm in terms of whether you had sought legal advice, or do you have anything which is the basis of your assertion in relation to the limitations of the Commission?
The submission I have just read to you was prepared for me by special counsel at Thomson Geer, one of the 10 leading law firms in Australia. The submission I provided, the deputation I provided, was also based on written advice that I had from special counsel at Thomson Geer.
Thank you for everybody. If we can just go through the questions. Is there anything further, Commissioner Heron? Nothing further? Any other questions, Commissioners? No. Thank you very much. We appreciate your deputation.
The next deputation this afternoon at item 2.6 is Raoul Abrutat.
My name is Raoul Abrutat. I'm a Hale Road resident. I live close by to the proposal. It's not development, it's just a proposal. And I'd like to see it go away, including the proposal, so the proponent. I'm a German-Australian, so thanks for having me. How I relate to the park is I'm a member of a bushland, and while many of us might be sitting at home at 40 degrees Celsius enjoying the air conditioning, I run around with buckets watering the trees I planted in the bushland, so that gives you an idea how I'm related to the area. I have a small present for you because I think you all have overlooked that, and I want to hand it out to you. I need to explain what I just have distributed to the West Australian Planning Commission committee. It's called the International Association of Public Participation. When one reads the SDAU document or anything that comes out of the proponent, it says public consultation left, right, and center. And I live close by. I can tell you there has been pretty much zero public consultation. For example, just to give you, I might sound a bit disrespectful, but I've never seen any of you knocking on my door and asking me how I feel about the proposal. What this association suggests is people who live close to a development need to have a say in the development. The only thing I have ever been consulted with, including a letter from the West Australian Planning Commission, was after the design has been finished by the proponent. I had absolutely zero impact, including all my neighbors, what is actually proposed on site. So I want to finish on a very positive note. What I just handed to you is a document that you actually, the West Australian Planning Commission and the state government has on its website. And it talks about how public consultation is supposed to start. It's supposed to start with to inform, then to consult, then to involve, then to collaborate, and then to empower. So I certainly don't feel very empowered about the site, and I was barely informed. When some of us went to the council meeting and asked, have you seen the application? The answer was given yes. And how many stories have you seen? There was just a smiley face and no answer. So we had been given absolutely nothing until the very minimum intent to development sign criterion that had to be addressed. And the sign was put in a way that if you even drive down from the first hill on Hale Road, you can't even see the sign because it's not 90 degrees to the driving direction. So my request is consult to the people according to the International Association of Public Participation and involve us. And I also want to just read a little sentence that...
you have reached 3 minutes, so if you could make your concluding comment.
5 seconds. Do things with us, not to us. Thank you.
Thank you, Raoul. Before you go, Raoul, I will just see if there are any questions for you from the Commission members. Are there any questions of Raoul? Go ahead, Commissioner Bennett.
Thank you for the deputation. I'm not sure whether you were a resident nearby when the local planning strategy was prepared, but I was interested in your reflections on the consultation during the preparation of the local planning strategy.
I can't remember how I was involved. I probably saw it only at the very end. What I actually overlooked to say is there there was a promise made there needs to be local development plan, which was also suggested by the proponent that document or that consultation work will happen. And as far as I can tell, it has not happened. So that's the story.
Thank you for your response.
Thank you. Are there any further questions? No, thank you very much, Roel. Appreciate your deputation.
The next deputation this afternoon is at item 2.7, and we welcome Ken Perry. Good afternoon, Mr. Perry. We'll bring up your presentation now, and you'll be able to use the clicker to advance those slides. Thank you.
If you could just move through the slides, 180 seconds, there's 5 slides, so 30 seconds each and something like that.
Sure,
Just keep pressing the button.
no problem.
Thank you for the opportunity to present today. Although I've only 3 minutes to address the West Australian Planning Commission, let me say up front how impressed I am that you've held this meeting in Florida, right? That's a big thing. That's a very big thing. Its importance to the community, recognition of the community is very important. I note there are over 200 pages of submissions that came in after the agenda was published. My submission rejects the proposal, and many others have detailed why. So I want to use my limited time to talk through how individual property rights are being destroyed by the way the planning system is operating in NWA. The system itself is okay. What is lacking is an appreciation of the value of individual property rights. And property rights are being treated very badly, and that underpins the angst which is in this room. Section 2.8 of the R Codes, and congratulations to the SDAU for putting all this out clearly, states that the development incentives are okay, provides the value to the developer, is offset by incremental, tangible, i.e. they can be valued, benefits to the community. So there's a balance to be achieved. The zoning sets everyone's share in the amenity of the area. The zoning is very important. That's why we go through a complicated planning process, right? Now, a development bonus comes when a development requires concessions above the levels suggested in the zoning. That's the definition of it, right? So you've got to identify what zoning's appropriate. Well, in this particular case, when the development proposal was made in 2023, 2021 had set a 6-storey height limit here, which is RAC3 and a 2.0 plot ratio. You moved through those pretty quick. These bonuses are in fact real money to developers. That's the reason they always look for them. And the extra money, the extra value, comes from the community's loss of amenity. Where else can it come from? It's from community loss. The alternative is to go through a proper planning process. And a proper planning process allows the community and the group representing them, the council and the city and town planners, to balance out the issues, to balance out the values, to represent the community, because it's the council that the community elects. What we have here is an opportunity, a grotesque overstatement of power because of COVID, which has passed, which has absolutely passed. The problems we have is one of undercapacity. And with that, I'd just like to say that $40 million is a lot of money. Think about that, $40 million, and the community benefits offsetting that are real but negligible. Thank you very much.
Ken, would you like to stay for any potential questions? Any questions, Commission members? No, there are no questions. Thank you very much, and thank you for your written deputation.
Very glad you fully understood and appreciated that.
We move to item 2.8 on the agenda, and we welcome Blair Seaby. And Mr. Seaby will bring up your PowerPoint presentation.
That's fine, I don't need it.
Oh, you don't want your PowerPoint presentation? That's fine. Thank
very
you.
much. Good afternoon to everybody who's gathered here today and to the Commission. Look, I'm sorry, I'm not an expert on local planning. I don't know the workings of the WAPC and I'm not a lawyer. So I don't understand the minutiae of the local planning laws and I don't understand the processes. But what I'm hoping to provide is a local perspective, perhaps some common sense and maybe even talk some truth to power. Part one of that aim is to establish that a 23-storey building in a low-density garden suburb is going to stick out like an erection at a gathering of eunuchs. In your heart of hearts...
Look, I do appreciate humour, but we do need to keep it respectful, so thank you.
Apologies to the eunuchs. In your heart of hearts, I think everyone here on the panel, everyone who's gathered behind me understands that that's going to be the case, that this is going to have a lasting impact on not only City Beach, but on the aesthetic of Perth's Central Coast. The second point I'd like to make is that we need to be able to have faith in our planning processes. We need to be able to trust the people who make these rulings on behalf of us, and we need them to be consistent, defensible and transparent. I've been involved in a number of these assessments and prepared applications for assessment, and with respect, the quality of the SDAU determination report is pretty underwhelming. To me, the report and its findings are largely subjective. As far as the scorecard metrics or quantitative assessments that would allow me to normalise and compare this development to a competing alternative are concerned, I couldn't find any. I'm willing to be corrected on that if they do exist. Means for comparison are vitally important. They enable us to ensure that consistent rulings are applied across Perth and that we're actually achieving the best outcome. To my mind, the SDAU just can't justify this ruling beyond subjectivity, and this leads us to a precarious outcome. The SDAU states that this development produces acceptable adverse amenity outcomes. Well, I disagree, and thus our opinions differ. But with a scorecard approach, the SDAU can't demonstrate, without a scorecard approach, the SDAU can't demonstrate that their opinion is more correct than mine, or even that development in this form compares favourably to other possible developments that would achieve a similar density. With this in mind, I'm afraid that to me, the SDAU becomes nothing more than a kangaroo court. Point three, my final point, is that the developers want to make money. They love it like magpies love shiny things. And right now, they're profiteering from the housing crisis. Let's be clear, developers aren't altruistic, they are driven by self-interest, and they're clever. Just compare the pictures and wording they use to sell developments to the WAPC in the approval stage to those that are used to sell that same development to buyers in the construction stage. Low impact versus views to Rottnest. Seeking development of a 23-storey building as opposed to a low-rise alternative isn't about project viability, it's about maximisation of profit. In summary, let's have urban infill, let's have development, but let's do it in a fair way, a way that provides maximum benefit to the maximum number of people. The current proponent and the current assessment approach have led us to a point where there's one really big winner, but unfortunately there are a lot of losers. We can do better, and the people of Perth deserve better. Let's not approve something that we're going to regret for the next 50 years. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Blair. Thank you for your deputation. Blair, I'll just see if there are any questions for you from members. There are none, but we thank you.
The next deputation at item 2.9 is from John Venn.
Yes.
Welcome, John.
Good afternoon. My name is John Venn. I was born in 39. I moved to Australia in 62, became a design engineer, later manufacturing manager, 320 persons. Married in 69, purchased 48 Brompton Road, Wembley Downs in 1973. I served on the Holy Spirit School Board, the parish chairperson, helped build our church, an acolyte, and have spent over 42 years in there until 2014. I wanted to thank Blair Seaby on his presentation, but obviously it changed. And the reason for that is that he spelt out very much in his original proposal what the definitions were in the State Planning Policy 7. So Policy 7 states, good design principles are, consideration of local content is particularly important for sites established in established areas. Massing height is appropriate to its setting, mitigating the potential for negative impacts on private land and public realm, reinforcing a coherent local identity. You will note from both the town of Cambridge and the city of Stirling came to the same design conclusions, best designed to comply with Policy 7. The proposed Blackburn design fails to comply in good design under policies 4.2 and 7.3. Please note, Blackburn have been working and playing chess with the Ocean Village development since 2022. You might note that the two previous owners worked with the town of Cambridge and the community to determine the future design development on site in all of these deliberations of a 5 to 6 floor discussion. The underlying feedback from community was an active boutique neighbourhood centre with a range of amenities. In 2022, the town of Cambridge sold 2 lots of land to enhance the upgrade of the Ocean Village with strategy 12.3, adopt a local first at all times, a brilliant strategy. Here comes now a new chess game moved for land available. In November 24, a panel team of 15 persons discussed the Open Village Neighbourhood Centre redevelopment, aligning their own set of design rules, not those of SP7. These 10 principles designed to suit extensive levels of various towers. A good design response to local community needs as well as a wider social context, providing environments that support a diverse range of people and facilitate interaction. That is the change, a massive change to the existing SP7. My view, WPC needs to embrace the bottom-up management style, not top-down approach, hence endorse their local government's decision,
John,
which represent those of their
comment?
local community.
Final comment, please. Perfect, thank you. All right, no, we will just pause here for questions. Commission members, are there any questions of John? There are none. Thank you for your deputation. Please, just on a pause, if we could just keep it to one time for each deputy. Thank you.
We now move to item 2.10 and we welcome Simone Marsh.
I've timed my presentation. It should be no more than a couple of seconds longer than 3 minutes, I promise, if it is. Oh, can we go back a slide before? My name is Simone Marsh. Our family have been residents of Drabble Road for the past 8 years, and our section of road heavily comprises of young families who have concerns about safety. Brompton Drabble Road is classified as a local distributor road. Over 8 years, we have seen significant year-on-year increases in traffic movements along our road, especially at peak AM and PM times. Brompton Drabble is being used as an alternate rat-run route to West Coast Highway to access Scarborough Town Centre, which has seen and will continue to see an exponential increase of residents in new and future high-density developments. Brompton Drabble is also used in peak hours to avoid West Coast Highway between Hale Road and Brighton Road and wait times at the traffic lights. The road is being used for a purpose it was never designed for, and it has created safety issues for our community and our children. Brompton Drabble is being forced to accommodate more traffic on a road network which is under increasing pressure. The WAPC and developer recognise the concerns that have been raised by the local community on the negative traffic impacts the development will have on Brompton Road. Concerningly, the developer's response has been, and I quote, "There is no need and nexus between these concerns and the development." As I have outlined above, there is clearly a need and nexus between these concerns and the impacts of the development at its current proposed scale. Individual developments are not islands to themselves. Each development that is added to the urban fabric has lasting impacts, and developers and WAPC have a responsibility to the community to ensure impacts are minimised. As concluded by the traffic impact assessment commissioned by the developer, moderate increases in the volume of our traffic carried by Brompton Road and Kilper Court will occur as a result of the development. However, on pages 44 and 45 of the WAPC agenda, it is stated the traffic impact assessment concludes the traffic generated by the proposal can be accommodated within the capacity of the existing road network while maintaining good levels of service, taking into account incremental traffic growth within the surrounding road network up to a 10-year horizon post-completion of the development. However, I would like to point out the following. The traffic impact assessment appears to be flawed in the modelling of traffic using Brompton Road to 2036. While the modelling has considered a year-on-year increase of traffic of 2% to 2036 on Hale Road, no increase of traffic has been considered along Brompton Road in that same timeframe. This is clearly evident when comparing figures 8 and 9 in the traffic impact assessment report. Figure 8 on the left shows the traffic flows in 2026 with full development. Figure 9 on the right shows the traffic flows in 2036 with full development and shows increases in traffic growth along Hale Road, but none along Brompton Road. As I outlined above, Brompton-Drabble is classified as a local distributor road, and considering how it is being used, increases in traffic along the road over time, resulting from further urban infill in Scarborough and border population growth.
Simone, just to be fair to all, you have reached 3 minutes, and if you could just make your concluding comment.
Yep, so, resulting from further urban infill in Scarborough and border population growth should be factored into the modelling to provide a more realistic picture on traffic impacts along this road.
Thank you, Simone. Probably need to leave it there, but if we can just see if there are any questions for you. Yes, go ahead, Commissioner Bennett.
Thank you for the deputation and for highlighting your concerns regarding the traffic. Your points are really clear.
Thank you. Can you please just hold applause? Thank you very much.
I'm just interested in, over time, if the traffic concerns on Brompton-Drabble have been identified by the local government and if there's been any mitigation measures or further studies.
Yep, the local government in terms of City of Stirling, where we are, is aware of it. We had those electronic signs on our street multiple times in the last couple of months because of resident concerns about driver behaviour. And so it's been reported. We've had traffic counts done along our road at periodic sort of times by the City of Stirling that I'm aware of. So yeah, I don't know if that answers your question.
It does. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any further questions for Simone? Thank you very much, Simone.
The next deputation is at item 2.11 and we welcome Basil Zemplis, MLA.
Welcome and congratulations.
Thank you very much. And a very good afternoon to everybody. And I too echo the comments of somebody from earlier. Thank you, and thank you for coming to Floreat and the electorate of Churchlands. And perhaps it's appropriate that my first official act as the member for Churchlands is to be here representing the people of Churchlands, I guess as it should be. Many of the people behind me, since this meeting was announced, contacted me to say that they were not in favour of what is being proposed. And it is the natural and right thing for me to do, to be here, to represent some of those who are unable to either be here because of the time or were not successful in having deputations registered. And we understand there is a process. I think having listened to...
sorry, Basil, just on that, all deputies have been accommodated today.
Tremendous, and thank you. I'm pleased to hear that. I do note a number of people that contacted me said because of the time they weren't able to be here today, but we understand that. I think the technical has been well covered already. Much of the specifics have been well addressed, and clearly there will be more of that in the deputations that follows. So in the 2 minutes that remain, perhaps the best thing that I can do on behalf of the people behind me and those that aren't here is say that it is clear from people within the electorate of Churchlands, having just come out of an election period, nobody in these suburbs are against density. Everybody understands the need for density and greater density. But that density must be, in the opinion of the people of the electorate of Churchlands, sensible and in keeping with the amenity and character of the local area. It is the view of many in the community that this particular development, the development itself, high quality, no doubt. The number of dwellings, no argument there. The site, it clearly needs improvement, and this would be good. But not all of the development that is before us meets that criteria. Is it in keeping with the character and amenity of the area? And I think importantly, people want to know that their points of view will be listened to. There is a large crowd here. We know that the City of Stirling and the town of Cambridge both have not been in favour of this development. And yet here we are with a process that seems poised to approve that development. How can the people behind me have confidence in this process if it is seen to be not much more than a rubber stamping exercise? The people have concerns with this development, and if approved as is, it would appear that those concerns will have been ignored. I think we all believe in the democratic process. It's important that we hear the voices of the community. And so therefore, I ask you please to consider the weight of numbers of people represented behind me today and the many who have contacted me and expressed their concerns that this development is not appropriate in its present form for the character and amenity of our local area. Thank you.
If you could just hold for questions, thank you. Members, are there any questions? Yes. Commissioner Bennett and Commissioner Sandry.
Thank you for the deputation, Basil, and appreciate the views of you and your constituents. In the many conversations that you've had, and I can definitely assure you it's not a rubber stamp given the volumes of papers that we receive and the matters that we need to review and consider very carefully, in the conversations with your constituents, has there been views expressed about alternatives to how the 200 to 250 dwellings could be accommodated on the site?
So there is a view from some that a broadening out across the footprint might be something that could be considered or might work rather than the absolute height of 23 stories. And people have made it very clear. They understand the need for a significant uplift in dwellings. They understand the need for greater density, including on this site. But what is at question is the extreme height, the 23 stories. And what also goes with that then is the precedent that it will perhaps create for this area. And 23 stories seems to be a topical number for people in this community because it is a number that is being considered for another site within the electorate of Churchlands. So broader across the footprint, that is what people have considered might be an appropriate way to get to the number of dwellings. It's the height that seems to be people's greatest concern, and the shadowing and the other byproducts of that may come with it.
Thank you, Basil. Commissioner Sandry.
Thank you, Mrs Amplis, for your deputation. And Commissioner Bennett has asked one of my questions. The last question I did have was, in terms of, you clarified the height is the primary issue. Did your constituents ever raise any issues regarding the land uses on the site in terms of the commercial parts of the development?
So that, and you can imagine having come out of an election campaign, I've got about 10,000 conversations ringing around in my head at the moment. There were some who raised that, but to give you an accurate representation of what most people have raised as the biggest concern, it is the height. Notwithstanding the fact that the number of dwellings and potential number of residents will cause other issues with things like traffic management, waste management and the like. But if you were to ask me, what's the number one thing people have commented about when saying they're not in favour of this development as it is, it would be the height.
Thank you. I think you've made that point very clearly. Thank you. We do have one other question for you from Commissioner Heron.
Yes, thank you. Mrs Amplis, I appreciate your insights around your electorate feedback. Given obviously your local government and now state government position, I just wanted to confirm with you. I can assure you that no decision has yet been made, but you would also appreciate that part of our role is to consider future generations as well as, you know, the current residents within the area. In terms of that broader issue, my understanding is that the intent here was to have nodal density as opposed to having it spread out across the broader suburb. Is that something that you think still stands, that nodal? I take your point about the height, that being, but do you see more broadly that this issue of having density contained within nodes and leaving significant areas as low density remains the supported approach within the community.
Thanks, Commissioner. And when I took Commissioner Bennett's question, when referring to being spread out, I was talking specifically about this site in relation to the dwellings. But nonetheless, as I have got around the electorate, people are very clear. We know that there is a need for greater density, and that won't come on just one site. We understand that there will be areas throughout the electorate of Churchlands that have been and will be identified for greater density. And with my local government background, if I may, I suppose one of the other things that people have said to me is, well, why have local government at all? If the City of Stirling and the town of Cambridge are going to come to conclusions that the development as it is not appropriate, then why have them do that if the decision is going to be superseded by another body? And that is a genuine concern of the people behind me and many who I have spoken to.
Thank you. Can you just hold, please? I just want to go back to Commissioner Herron. Has that satisfied your question, Commissioner Herron?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Are there anything further? Thank you very much.
Thanks, everybody, for the opportunity.
We'll now move to item 2.12 and welcome Mayor Gary Mack.
Good afternoon, Commissioner. I'm here with Director of Planning Community Services at the town.
Welcome to you both.
I just want to very quickly thank the Commission for organising this meeting in the town of Cambridge. It's greatly appreciated. The WA Planning Commission endorsed Town of Cambridge Local Planning Strategy prescribes a dwelling yield of 250 residents, and the town has no objection to this. The town has no objection to the development of this site. Our fundamental concern is the built form outcome, specifically a 23-storey tower in a low-density suburban neighbourhood. The WAPC endorsed strategy classifies this site as a neighbourhood centre, not a district centre, not a secondary centre, but a neighbourhood centre. Now, according to the State Planning Policy 4.2, neighbourhood centres should accommodate medium density in a compact and cohesive form that complements the surrounding built form character in terms of scale and style. It's greatly concerning that the SDOU report does not meaningfully address this and simply tries to justify the proposal by saying the centre's location largely within the middle of an existing street block makes it somewhat isolated and distinct from its low-scale residential surroundings. Therefore, from a streetscape, cohesiveness and broader local perspective, it is not critical for the development to demonstrate consistency in scale with its neighbours. This statement is simply incorrect. It's absolutely critical that the development demonstrates consistency in scale with its surroundings. If a proposal cannot demonstrate compatibility with the local area and alignment with the established planning framework, then it should not be approved. The WAPC's flagship policy, State Planning Policy 7, establishes 10 key design principles. And of course, design principle 3 is that good design ensures massing and height of the development is appropriate to its setting and successfully negotiates between existing built form and intended future character of the area. Likewise, it should respond positively to that of adjoining buildings, the topography, the general patterns of height, and the views, vistas, landmarks of the place, reinforcing a cohesive local identity. This application plainly fails to meet those requirements. It introduces a 23-storey tower in a predominantly low-density suburban area, in an area that will remain low-density under an approved strategic planning framework, and where there is a reasonable expectation for the future development to be no greater than 6 storeys. The SDOU report appears to endorse the argument that well-designed taller buildings with good siting, setbacks and open space and articulation can be significantly better for neighbourhoods than poorly designed low-rise buildings. The logic in this is fundamentally flawed. Well-designed lower-rise buildings can also have and provide for ample open space, appropriate setbacks and strong articulation and integration with the surrounding built form. There are many international local examples of this. Further, the SDO suggests that the built form impact of the tower can be mitigated by using darker contrasting materials in the upper levels. This argument is unpersuasive. Cladding colour does not reduce the perception of height. A 23-storey tower in a low-density suburban setting remains just that, a 23-storey tower, regardless of what colour it is. On behalf of the residents and ratepayers of Cambridge, the town of Cambridge is deeply concerned regarding the SDU assessment of this application. It is clear that the established planning framework has been disregarded and the justification for approval is based on economic stimulus provisions rather than proper planning grounds.
Mr Mayor Mack, you have reached your 3 minutes. If you could conclude, that would be much appreciated.
I'll conclude with one more sentence. Thanks, Madam Chair. It is respectfully requested that WAPC refuse this application as it does not align with the established planning framework and represents a significant departure from orderly and proper planning principles. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I will go to questions. Thank you. Questions for Commission members? Commissioner Sandry.
Thank you, and thank you, Mayor Mack, for your deputation. I just would like to refer potentially to the SDAU report, and maybe the Director can assist. Just for clarity, as I understand, the town of Cambridge has a draft local planning scheme number 2 that it has been prepared, and there have been 2 deferrals. Can I just ask why there has been a delay in preparing the modifications for advertising of that draft scheme?
I'll refer that to the Director.
Through the Chair, if I may, the town does indeed have a draft local plan scheme number 2. That was initiated, I think, in August 2023. Progress on that has been held pending with agreement with the department to enable the town to progress a suite of key strategic planning projects. That work's been progressing well, and the matter will actually be considered by council this coming Tuesday, when council will consider the scheme with a view to it going back to the department and for advertising later this calendar year.
And if I may, Chair, just have a couple of questions. And with respect to that draft scheme that's going back to council on Tuesday, and I'm not sure whether you can disclose this yet or not if it's on the public record, but is the neighbourhood centre zoning remaining on the subject site?
Through the Chair, it's certainly public facing. It's on the town's website at the moment. The proposed density code for that site is RAC3, which reflects a previous decision of council, I think it was June last year, whereby council endorsed the view that it was comfortable with a building height of up to 6 storeys. So based on that decision, draft LPS2 will be supported on that basis.
Thank you. And as you're probably aware, as part of consideration by the Commission, we have to consider the broader economic, social and environmental benefits to the state. And with respect to that, one element may be the ability for this development to proceed. So I have a question regarding the ownership of land. Does the town still own part of this land?
Through the Chair, yes, that's correct. Okay. But there is a contract of sale.
Okay, and okay, I'll leave it at that for now. Maybe that, yeah.
Well, we do have a question from Commissioner Lakey, so we can come back to you if you need. Thank you. Go ahead, Commissioner Lakey.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for your presentation, Mayor Mack. A lot of your comments was around design, setbacks and the like. Clearly, as part of this process, a significant part of the process is the engagement with the State Design Review Panel, which is chaired by the government architect, and a number of highly experienced and respected architects sit on that panel. The panel is generally supportive of the proposal. So I just wonder what your thoughts are to help us, because obviously we have these detailed analysis of it and how that relates to your design commentary.
Look, I'll say something, then I'll get the Director to perhaps add to it if he likes. The general view is that it is. Well, I understand there have been 3 design panel review meetings. The general feeling is that is the height, the benefit of the commercial development, the benefit of having the medical centres and gyms and other things. We still want those things, but what we want is, as Mr. Zemplis has pointed out, is over a 12,000 metre site. It can be spread over further on that site, the building, which will lower that height. I don't think there's any misunderstanding that can't be achieved with, again, really good design. Now, because I'm not privy to the minutes of the design review panel, they're normally confidential, I understand. I don't know whether they've actually considered other alternate building forms other than the 23 tower.
Just for clarification, the review of the State Design Review Committee were part of the attachment for the report. Commissioner, do you have any further questions? Commissioner
No,
Levy?
thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Commissioner Hall, you have a question?
Thank you, Chair. My question is I want to better understand what role the town of Cambridge has had in the state design review process. If I could get an understanding of that, please.
I'll have to direct that to the Director.
Through the Chair, the town has been involved. The town was invited by the Department to participate. The town was invited to present or make a series of presentations to the SDRP to enable the SDRP to more fully consider the matter. The town, in providing those presentations, did relay concerns that are sort of reflective of the Mayor's presentation today. That is fundamentally regarding height. In terms of the quality of the building, there's no disputes there that it is a well-designed, high-quality building. The point the town would make is that it is in the wrong context. The design quality is not being questioned. It is whether this is the appropriate location for a 23-storey tower.
Thank you. I might just ask a follow-up question. It goes particularly to the point that was raised by Commissioner Heron in the last deputation around the preference of the community to have density at nodes, at activity centres and key locations. Amendment 31 was a key part of that process. So I guess my question is really around achieving density targets by the town in the context of having preservation of the garden suburbs through Amendment 31, whilst having, should we say, medium density at the nodes and the activity centres.
I think that's politically look. The answer to that is the town has endorsed the nodal approach, and it's just not. For example, there's higher rise, not just medium density, planned for the Wembley West Little Activity Centre on the eastern part of the town. We've got Friar Forum, which will be is going to do a lot of the heavy lifting in terms of reaching our 6,800 residents that we need to do. And I might say that we are well on the way to that. There's additional sites that we're looking at, which we were doing a precinct structure plan for the Wembley area, the Wembley Hotel area and so on. That will accommodate more density. So that nodal approach has been well adopted by, I think, and endorsed by the community. We went out to public consultation. So we do intend to keep the garden suburb character, which is a type of a heritage character, but also meeting our infill targets, which we are very much committed to.
Thank you.
Did you want to add anything to that, Director?
Just through the Chair, your characterisation of the town's strategy is accurate. The town wants to protect the low-density, green, leafy garden suburbs, and as a result seeks to accommodate the 6,830 dwellings in and around precincts and nodes. So your characterisation is correct. And as Mayor Mack has mentioned, this site has been earmarked for 200 to 250 dwellings, and there is no objection or in principle opposition to that. The town is committed to reaching its target. It's just the built form outcomes that we need to achieve along the way.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Brooks.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask a little bit about your assessment of the site and to accommodate 200 to 250 dwellings. Did you look at the scale of the footprint that would be required at 6 storeys and the ability for retention of some of the large trees and areas of deep soil? Did you do an assessment of that?
Through the Chair, the 200 to 250 dwellings figure is derived from the local planning strategy. That work was concluded in 2021, but underpinning that work was a modelling exercise undertaken by the consultant at the time. For Ocean Village, that was based upon certain assumptions, and those include a building height of up to 6 storeys and a total area of 1.87 hectares across the entire precinct. From what I can tell, that assessment and that modelling didn't go into a really granular level of tree preservation or detailed design. It was simply a calculation based on a series of assumptions for this site and every other development precinct in the district.
And assuming the whole precinct redevelopment as opposed to this site would that have included the redevelopment of the church site?
That's correct.
And the existing low density?
That's correct. So the entire site includes 1.87 hectares, which includes the sites closer to Brompton Road.
Thank you, Commissioner Bennett.
Thank you. And further to Commissioner Brooks's question, which I'm also interested in. So just to be clear, when considering the proposal for the 6 stories, there wasn't any detailed design or feasibility kind of analysis or understanding about the ability for that to work at 6 stories for the 250 dwellings?
Through the chair, no. Based on my reading of the work
Okay.
done at the time, it was based on a series of assumptions and applying a series of ratios to the development areas.
Sure, thank you. May I ask a follow-up question? So just to move on from the built form to talk about the open space that's adjoining, are you able to speak a little bit about the management practices for the town for that open space in terms of maintenance and management of that? And that we heard earlier from a local resident who undertakes some maintenance perhaps as part of a local community group?
Through the chair, probably not a great deal. I can confirm that it's a Crown Reserve that the town has care and control of, and the town manages the reserve. I understand there's a Friends of group that operates in that area as well. And anecdotal evidence is that the park is well used and well valued.
Yeah, thank you.
And just to add to that, that Friends group has also done various detailed surveys of the fauna and flora in that area, and they've provided that to the town as well. So it's well appreciated in the community, well monitored by the community, by that community group.
Sure. Thank you very much.
Commissioner Herron.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, thank you for your submission. I just wanted to ask, there was obviously representation made previously around approvals being issued under other than the Development Act, but rather the Act, the Endowment Land Act. Has the council dealt with any applications applying that legislation as opposed to its planning scheme, the provisions of the Planning and Development Act?
Through the chair, yes, we routinely do, but I suppose that is in a different context. That is for land identified for residential purposes as opposed to a local centre or neighbourhood centre site, as is the one being considered today. So just a bit of context there. We have a local law called Local Law 43 that prescribes various requirements, and the operative requirements of that local law that extend beyond the normal planning development framework relate to roof colour and cladding of buildings. So what will routinely happen is a report will go to council every month for council to consider a number of applications for single houses under the local law as distinct from being under the Planning Development Act. So council makes a decision on those applications with respect to only the cladding and the roof colour.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Hall and then Commissioner Lakey.
Thank you, Chair. I see the Town of Cambridge has a tree retention on private property policy, and I'm just wondering if there was an assessment done as to how that policy would apply if there was a 6-story kind of height limit, or if the height was reduced and the yield was maintained, and if there'd be any conflicts there.
Through the chair, no. We have not undertaken that review on the basis that we don't have that application in front of us. The policy was only adopted relatively recently, I think December last year, so no, Commissioner Hall, we haven't done that work.
Commissioner Hall, you happy for me to move to Commissioner Lakey? Thank you, Commissioner Lakey.
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick one, just so it's very clear in my mind. The council or the city is happy with the 200 to 250 apartments, but they didn't do the work to know whether it could be facilitated in a 6-story building with all the other impacts. Is that setbacks, tree retention, and all the other various impacts? Is that correct?
Through the chair, the work was done, as I explained to Commissioner Bennett earlier. It was a modelling exercise based on lot areas and assumptions and application of various ratios. It is relevant to note that that was accepted by the Commission when the Commission adopted the town's local planning strategy.
Commissioner Lake, anything further?
Oh, that's fine. Thank you.
Thank you. Commission members, any further questions? No, thank you very much to you both.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you.
Sorry, I just-
My apologies. Please hold. Please hold. We do have a further question for Mayor Mack and Luke. Thank you.
Yeah, and Chair Adair does too. Sorry, we're having technical difficulties. Sorry,
technical issues just being resolved.
Sorry. I just want to clarify one aspect. On page 2 of the report, it suggests that the town of Cambridge agreed to the lodgement of the development application. Is this in fact correct? And was there a process attached to that due to I'm assuming the purchase of the land at some point?
Through the chair, yes, that's correct. So the town did consent, and that was part of the contract of sale. That the town would not obstruct an application being made, but that does not extend, obviously, to necessarily supporting that application.
And just one other question in relation to that. And I don't know whether you can disclose this or whether this is commercial in confidence, but as part of that contract, was there any consideration that an SDAU application could be lodged at that point?
Through the chair, I don't recall there being any specific provisions to that effect, but obviously it was always open to the applicant to lodge an application. There was a specific provision about consent to be granted for an application to be lodged, although I don't believe it was specific to an SDAU application.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you,
Commissioner
Chair.
Adair.
Thank you, Chair. I had a supplementary question to Commissioner Hall's question about the trees and tree retention versus tree removal. Is it correct in my understanding that, as the assessment hasn't been done, any future removal of any tree would require a DA?
Through the chair, it would if it met the parameters contained in Council's adopted local planning policy, which was adopted in December. That policy has the effect of determining, prescribing standards that apply to a regulated tree, and that relates to height and breadth, size, significance, etc. And where it meets certain parameters, it would otherwise be protected. But I have to check the policy specifically, but I think that applies to land zoned residential only.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any further questions? Thank you very much. We appreciate your taking our questions today. Can I just note at this point that you have been a very respectful audience, and I'm just encouraging you to continue in this vein as we continue through our deputations. Please do continue to extend that courtesy and respect to our next deputies.
And our next deputation this afternoon is at item 2.13, and we welcome Jessie and Alana Phillips.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much to everyone deputationing today. Awesome job. Alana's not here with me today to represent, but I'm representing Ocean Breeze Strata Company, their closest proximal habitable dwelling. It is on, we are 1 Kilper Court. We will be ground zero for this operation. Ultimately, as a strata, we don't object. I think many people don't object to the development of this site. I think that's fairly clear. However, obviously in its current design, it's just, it will be a beautiful eyesore. It is out of character. It doesn't have any precedence in the area. I don't know, in its current form, it may be acceptable on various grounds heard today, and it might be not acceptable on various grounds, but ultimately we need to forecast into the future as a community and consider how this precinct will be used. We hope it won't be a white elephant if it goes ahead as it is currently proposed, because there's so much backlash. How will it be accepted? How will the residents buying in feel? You know? Anyway, we digress. Part of it is assuming everything does go ahead, and it will probably, hopefully go ahead. We thank Blackburn for putting something so, magnificent in front of us to consider. But what do we expect as local residents? Traffic access to our property. That is the only current access road. Kilper Court. We have 2 driveways that jump into our property. The earthworks are a major concern. It hasn't been spoken about because we're obviously not at that nitty-gritty point yet, but ultimately the ground movement around, we're very concerned as a strata company around our retaining wall on the western side of our property, the eastern side of the boundary that butts onto Hale Road. Wondering around vibration, around noise, around dust, what is being sort of addressed and documented in relation to mitigating, monitoring, actioning any issues. If we have ongoing issues during construction, which we're assuming is going to be a fairly lengthy 18-month plus operation, who do we go to? Who is a contact point? Let's see the pragmatics of it on the ground. I've read about a dilapidation report, page 176. I did email in relation to the agenda. It hasn't been noted that Strata Plan 16831 is on that list of dilapidation reports. So I just wanted to note that one. Water quality is another factor. So just in relation to livability. You have come to your
3 minutes, so if you could...
That's fine. I'm done. Thanks, dudes.
That's it? Okay. All right.
Yep.
Well, thank you. I think some
happy.
of the questions that you're putting we can put to the applicant when we get to the deputation. But Commission members, are there any questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The next deputation this afternoon is at item 2.14 and we welcome Sarah Beale.
Hi, thank you for having me today. I'm Sarah Beale and I've lived in the area for 18 years. I love our area and I cannot see myself living anywhere else. I'm aware part of the community is not happy for this development and change is hard. So I felt the need to speak up for those of us who are in support of this development, to say not all of us are against it. I too voted for Basil, but his opinion does not represent all of us. For me, who has been trying to downsize within the area, to find the scope of variety of housing within the area so my kids can stay within the school has not been feasible. For all of us with large blocks, there is limited opportunities to downsize. I believe for everyone within the area, we have a right for housing options in order to let go of what we currently have and to stay within our areas. The site does deserve a developer with the capacity to deliver. I've personally gone and viewed Blackburn's other developments and feel that they have the ability to deliver exceptional developments that take the community into mind. The area and City Beach deserves a high value, high density options. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Before you go, Sarah, I'll just see whether there are any questions from Commission members. Commission members, any questions? Thank you very much for your deputation.
The next deputation this afternoon is at item 2.15 and we welcome Troy McMillan.
Afternoon. Thanks to the Commission. Unfortunately, Troy couldn't be here today, so I'm reading this on his behalf.
Sorry, just for the purposes of our records, could you just let us know your name? That would be very helpful.
Yes, my name is Hugh Peacock. He said, I'm Troy. I've lived in City Beach for the last 12 years and I've seen it evolve and grow. This is just that next natural step. We have no housing options like this in the suburb for locals to downsize into. Right now, if people want to downsize, they are essentially forced to leave the area, which really is a shame. Further, this development also means the community gets a quality new neighbourhood centre, all at the cost of a derelict one, which frankly at this point is an embarrassment to the area. I'm very much looking forward to this going ahead, and as far as I'm concerned, the sooner the better.
Given that you're not the actual deputy, I don't know that we should take questions. So
I know Troy very well, so we communicate with each other.
no, I think it's probably we don't need to do that. But we thank you for your for
live
speaking
like-
on behalf of the Deputy Troy McMillan. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
The next deputation is at item 2.16 and we welcome Peter and Denise Douglas.
Good afternoon. My wife's just sitting back there. She's all right.
No problem.
Well-
You go ahead.
Well, I'll probably get booed, but I'm fully in favour of it. We have 2 daughters and 4 grandkids living just over the other side of Hale Road. And it's so hard because we want to move into the area, but we don't need a 4-bedroom home. We don't need even a 3-bedroom home. We just like to move into this development because once you have a look at it, it has everything. All right, everyone's complaining about the height, but you know, we actually lived in an apartment once and it was just so good. You can just lock it up, go and grab the caravan and take off. Don't have to worry about anything. This development,
Quiet, please.
you're going to have cafes underneath. You're going to have parklands outside, a kids' play area. You know, what more could you actually want? I mean, it's going to annoy some people, but most of us who all want to downsize, you know, it's just going to be fantastic. And I think it'll be a fantastic development. And for anyone sitting on the balcony, you're not going to look into people's backyard.
Can you please show the same respect to this deputy that you have to previous? Thank you.
I mean, I'm going to be more interested looking at the ocean than anything else. And I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you. Thank you for your deputation, Troy. Commission members, are there any questions of Troy?
I have a question.
Yes, would you mind taking a question from Commissioner Adair?
Yes.
I'm interested, you're very keen to move into the area.
Yep.
So you've been looking around.
Yep.
What alternatives are there currently in the City Beach
Well, I
area?
don't want to live in Scarborough. And I don't want to. If you want to live in Scarborough, you just can...
Just address me. That's okay.
No, I want to live in City Beach. I have 2 daughters and
Yeah.
4 grandkids living just the other side of Hale Road. I prefer to live there. I can walk across the path.
So there's
and we're there.
there's not a lot of alternatives for you at the moment, is that
There's none.
correct? Exactly.
There's none at all.
Please, I'm asking you to please withhold commenting during the deputation.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next deputation this afternoon is at item 2.17 and we welcome Paul Blackburn, Ben Doyle, Matthew Kane, Robin White, James Thompson, Alan White and Matthew Chow. So just before you start this afternoon, I just will, for the benefit of the public, we have granted 20 minutes to the applicant team this afternoon as combined deputation, recognising the number of speakers that they have speaking this afternoon. I will hand over to you when you're ready. Thank you.
For clarification, individual deputation requests were made. We have simply pulled them together So I'd please ask that you continue to show respect.
Thank you, Commission, for allowing us the opportunity to speak today. I'm joined by the project team. They've just been introduced. I won't repeat that in the interest of brevity. There we go. All right. The strategic planning for infill started for this area and for Perth generally about 15 years ago, with Directions 2031 and Perth and Peel at 3.5 million. And they assigned a dwelling target for the town of Cambridge of 6,830 dwellings by 2050. Okay, so in response to that, the town initiated Amendment 31. And what that proposed to do was scatter density throughout the suburbs, including City Beach. This distributed density model was roundly rejected by the local community. It was widely opposed. The mayor lost his seat. The main opponent was elected in his place as mayor, and it was ultimately rejected by the minister, to much rejoicing. So with Amendment 31 dead, in 2018, Council considered a draft local planning strategy. And what that was a complete reversal of the approach to density in Cambridge. Instead of spreading density throughout the suburbs, which were valued, the garden suburbs, what it did was took a targeted approach to identified precincts to accommodate that density. The strategy identifies just 7 precincts, including Ocean Village, and what the local planning strategy says is that is to accommodate, quote, accommodate a significant proportion of the town's residential growth target through the development of medium and high density apartments. The strategy sets a target of 250 dwellings for this site. Now, there's been a bit of discussion around the 6-storey height expectation, and some have suggested that the background analysis that was accompanying the strategy sets a limit of 3 to 6 stories. Now, setting aside that the background analysis is not part of the adopted strategy, even setting that aside, it does not purport to set a height limit of 6 stories. As Mr. Gibson outlined, the background analysis is merely a model constructed by the planning consultant who was doing the analysis to inform the yield calculation for the site. And it assumed a few things. It assumed a flat site, as you can see there. It assumed a 2-storey podium covering the entire site. It assumed 6-storey towers covering almost half the site. It made no allowance for tree retention or open space, public space, deep soil, daylight, ventilation, none of those things. It was a model prepared by a planner, not an architect, to estimate a potential yield on a site. And it was nothing more. That quote there is from the council report prepared by the town's officers, making that explicit to the community and to the council. So if we go to the dwelling targets again, to achieve that 6,830 dwellings, there's an interim target of 3,100 dwellings by next year. As at the last census, Cambridge had delivered 1,220 dwellings, meaning they're on track to fall about halfway short of their 2026 target already. So the community has made it clear that it wants to leave the garden suburbs alone, and that new housing should be achieved through targeted infill in designated precincts. The inevitable, unescapable fact of focusing density into targeted nodes to preserve the low-density suburbs is that those nodes will be a different scale to the low-density suburbs you're preserving. Right? That's a feature, not a bug. That's the intent. Either the new housing is distributed throughout the suburbs or it is delivered in targeted precincts. There's no secret third option. The community and the council emphatically rejected the distributed density idea and opted for the nodal development. And that's been reinforced again by speakers today. So what this is the culmination of a series of decisions, actions and non-actions and targets set by the local government and the state government to deliver infill over the last 15 years for this area. Apart from the local planning strategy, the local planning framework is extremely out of date and really must be set aside.
It's inconsistent with the own objectives in the local planning strategy. So we think this is an excellent development by an award-winning team, and it's going to achieve the targets that the town of Cambridge has set themselves for this site, for this urban consolidation area under the local planning strategy. So I'll hand over now to Jimmy and he can talk you through the design considerations.
Thanks, Ben, and hello everyone. I'm Jimmy Thompson, Design Director at NJO Studio, and I speak in support of this item. Now, as Ben said, this site itself has been considered for high-density development for a very long time, and a high-density mixed-use node within City Beach and the town of Cambridge. Now, there's only 3 sites in the whole western side of the town of Cambridge that you could achieve development like this. And if you're going to save the garden nature of City Beach, if you're going to retain all the trees and all the great single detached housing and the big blocks, you have to make these sites count. And you have to do it in a considered way. And we've spent the best part of the year with the State Design Review panel working through what are the best options for this site. This current site condition is an absolute mess. It's full of derelict, partially built buildings. It's got very poor commercial outcomes and amenity. It's really disconnected and it doesn't deal with the levels at all well. Now, to the north is this amazing opportunity to actually upgrade Ocean Village Park and to add to the amenity of it, to allow better public access in terms of having food and beverage operations running straight onto the park. Sorry, there's just a bit of a lag on this. Play back. All right, so we have lost power, I think, on this one.
Sorry, is it gone?
It's just going a bit astray.
Can we just pause that timer just for a moment while we try and resolve this for you?
Might just be the battery.
Otherwise, we can just advance the slides on your behalf. If we get it back to the right point, my team can do that if we're having trouble with the clicker. So are we at the right slide now? Can we just go back a couple of slides, please?
Keep going, 2 more, thanks. And 1 more. Okay, so whenever you have the opportunity to look at what is the most optimal way of achieving 250 apartments on a site like this, you run through a whole series of different scenarios. You don't just assume that your first idea or option is best. So we've looked at 4 different buildings on site. One's where you've got a linked road between Hale and Kilper. But what that does is push all the built form to the edges, pushes it closer to the neighbours. It also, if you cut a road through it, means it's much more vehicle orientated and you get much more winds coming through, becomes a bit of a wind tunnel. So you look at 3 buildings, but then you get bigger masses and you still have to push everything to the edges. That third option, you can see that's 12 stories, so reducing the height from where it is currently, but it's still a volumetric exercise and it occupies a huge amount of the site and actually has worse outcomes for our western neighbours in terms of overshadowing. Next slide, please. So as you roll through these options, you're not just trying to find the best outcomes for the end users or the people who are going to occupy these apartments or use the commercial facilities at ground level. You're also working through with the State Design Review panel, what are the best options for adjacent neighbours? Next slide, please. So where we've worked towards is the one on the right, essentially. So where you get a variety of height across the site. You're able to increase setbacks, maximising wind-protected public open space. You're able to massively reduce the effect of overshadowing on southern neighbours and also limit it to western neighbours. So enabling them, especially in the morning, to get better light conditions into their dwellings. Next slide, please. This is an approach to massing which has the support of the State Design Review panel. It went through a whole series of iterations, and you get this really great opportunity to have an organic built form. And you've also, when you look at this site, got to recognise that the tallest elements of this building only occupy 13% of the site. Next slide, please. So in the SDAU report, it very clearly looks at this element. and it notes that well-designed taller buildings with good siting, setbacks, open space and articulation can be significantly better for neighbourhoods than poorly designed low-rise buildings with high site coverage. So again, it's all a volumetric exercise. The lower you have it, the worse amenity you have for residents, the less public space you can achieve. So there's many, many advantages of having height on this site. But you've got to do it in a responsive way, and the report clearly shows that, or reports that, it is considered to contribute to a contextually responsive design that does not result in unacceptable or adverse amenity impacts by way of visual privacy overshadowing. Like, these are the key elements when we think about design. So to summarise the key design drivers, we really wanted to create a really strong green heart in the centre of the site, one that could link Kilper Court to Ocean Village Park, one that we would allow to build around a really great commercial offering. So you've got supermarkets, you've got bars, restaurants, cafes, hairdressers, chemists, all the things that communities need, all the things that you need in your local area and what a local centre should have. We really wanted to be able to retain and support all the existing trees, especially the tuarts on the northeast, and create green buffers to the adjacent sites, especially to the east, noting that on the west we already have a green buffer on that side. We're positioning the towers as appropriately as possible, and very much that's all around reducing overshadowing to adjacent neighbours and noting that we are completely compliant all across in every direction with overshadowing. Next slide, thanks. Can I have the next slide, please? And this is what you get. You get this amazing outcome. This is a really world-class development. You've got a delivery team which is very strong, has the capacity to deliver it. You've got a design team who distinctly cares about design outcomes and creating good community hubs. Next slide. And here in an aerial view, you can see how extensive the landscape is on multiple levels. We are drastically increasing the canopy coverage across the site.
It appears we're just having some technical lag. Apologies.
And so I'm very fortunate to work on projects across Perth and across Australia. And just looking at these project numbers, you can see how significant the design excellence is, allowing 34% of the site to be open to the public, open space at 57%, 92% of apartments achieve over and above their requirements for solar access and cross ventilation. We're retaining trees, we're 5-star Green Star certified. We are doing everything all and above to get a really amazing international standard development here. And very much the architecture is driven from the local community and the local built form and the 4 scales and types of city beach architecture, from the pavilion to the terracotta village, through the modernist housing and then to the landmark organic forms. This is a place driven from place. And finally, just to reiterate the report in terms of what's been recognised as community benefit, it's substantial public open space, enhancements to Ocean Village Park, extensive tree protection and sustainability over and above, excellent financial and strategic outcomes in terms of employment growth, and the ability to have community facilities integrated on site for local groups and also for the church. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jimmy. I can just continue with that PDF, it'll be easier, I think. Just load up the PDF, I think. That'll be the quickest way to get going. Yeah, if we just continue from the MJA slides, that'll be okay. All right, no rush, thanks.
Thank you for your patience, everybody.
All right, thanks for your patience. I'll jump in then. So my name's Matthew, and I thought I'd provide the perspective from the landowner in preparing the application and having it assessed. As Ben mentioned, Amendment 31 is a very important document, an important starting point. It was a proposal 10 years ago which sought to achieve infill targets by introducing broad infill density across the area. It did that by permitting subdivision of larger blocks into smaller blocks. Now, as Ben said, that was soundly rejected. There was a lot of opposition to it, and it didn't go ahead. Now, I think one positive thing is that the local planning strategy came out from this. So next slide, please. What that strategy sought to do was take a different approach. And what it did was it identified some specific sites which were targeted specifically for a development such as one we're looking at today. They need to meet certain criteria. They need to be of a certain size, located close to amenity, close to important transport infrastructure and so on. Ocean Village Shopping Centre has been identified as one of those sites, and the whole point behind that is to preserve the local character by obviating the need for any subdivision beyond that. I need to point out that these are very rare opportunities. That's largely due to the fragmented ownership throughout the area. That's the number one reason why there can't be a Surfers Paradise or a Bondi. It won't be any of those things. It is the town of Cambridge. There are very few opportunities for a development like this. This is an appropriate site for one of those things, but that's why it's a very different thing. Go to the next slide, please. A lot of community consultation has taken place. Aside from the things on screen, DPLH does a lot of consultation with 11 different departments and agencies, and that's a very important thing for us to work collaboratively. I do want to mention to the gentleman who mentioned before that he's had a lot of people approaching him, telling him about how they're not happy with it and so on. I think that's natural at this stage of the process, but something that doesn't get spoken about are the people who aren't involved at this point. And I guess us on this side of the table do get to speak to these people, and I'm talking about those who move into these developments later on. There is a high demand for these things. They sell out very quickly. And when we finish these developments, we're routinely met with people who come up to us and say, "It's amazing. I never thought I'd live in an apartment, but it's a very different thing. I'm glad we have these options." And that's all we're talking about here, providing different options and diversity. As far as the proposal goes, I'll go pretty quickly because I think Jimmy covered off quite well, but the challenge for us is to come up with a proposal that meets the objectives of the local planning strategy while also complying with the R codes. I think that's been achieved and it has been done. Built form is a very important part of that, and I know height is a contentious issue, but I think height is something that we get to talk to the State Design Review Panel in a lot of detail, and it's not just about how tall something is, it's where does that height go and what does that height give you. And Jimmy spoke to all the things around open space, daylight. Over half of this site is open to the sky, a third of it is open to public space, and that's enshrined through a public access easement. So these are the important things that go into the other side of the equation. Can't quite remember the next slide is, so I won't jump ahead. While waiting, I just mentioned that we did go through a lot of work with the State Design Review Panel. There were 4 sessions, or 3 sessions across 4 months, a lot of iterations and back and forth just to refine the proposal to improve it as much as we can. And we did test all of the other things around this 6-storey idea. This 6 stories we tested very carefully, and I can say it does not work. You can't fit in that many apartments while achieving volume 2 of the R codes. On the right slide. So, State Development Assessment Unit, it's a very thorough process. It's had over a year of review by the DPLH. It's an incredibly detailed assessment. It's the most detailed assessment I've come across. Importantly, the State Design Review Panel also supports it, and I think it's a very thorough report, which, can we go to the next slide, please, recommends approval. Yeah, we'll just skip that slide and go to the next one as well, please. So just to wrap up, we have an application that meets the planning framework. It's got uses and design that is appropriate, uses being apartments and amenity, which are very important things, a DPLH recommendation for approval, but ultimately it's a proposal which is economically viable, and I think the single most important thing, because we want to see renewal, I think most people here do, and they don't want to see the shopping centre remain derelict. Thanks.
Thank you. You've got roughly 3 minutes left of your time.
Okay, thanks. Thanks very much. Ben, James, Matthew, MJA here and Planning Solutions have played a key role in not just ensuring a design that meets the market of what the sorts of people, mostly locals, would want to live here, but also help us stay aligned with the state planning policies, the objectives of the local planning policy, and just ensure it's generally based on sound planning principles. So thanks, Planning Solutions and Ben, for that. I'll make a few quick points in the last 2 minutes. One, it's interesting that around 30% of the homes in the local area are only using 1 bedroom of a 4 to 6 bedroom home. The kids have left home for a large portion of these people, or will be leaving home soon, and they no longer need or want a large ageing home. Often it's the chore, and often don't want the chore of maintaining the gardens any longer. This is not for everybody. Of those 30% that are only using 1 bedroom, half of them may wish to stay in that home forever, but there is a large portion, we know, from previous developments where there's quite literally hundreds of locals that will want to right-size and move into projects like this. There's already, without any advertising, through people hearing about it through comment, I'm told by the team, 513, mostly locals that live within 5 kilometres, have registered to want to live within the project. There is almost no options in the area for these hundreds of people to live in the to right size. We know there's a desperate shortage of housing in Perth, and particularly in the western suburbs. Due to the locals downsizing, it's interesting to note as well, there'll be hundreds of homes sold. This will free up over 1,000 bedrooms and allow a new young family to move into the area and again become part of the local community. Many locals have their wealth trapped in their home. They've worked hard all their lives, paid off a mortgage, and the home's gone up in value. But with the cost of living now, many people are finding it difficult to survive. By selling their home and often buying an apartment at a more affordable price point, it frees up wealth to be able to retire more comfortably, or help the kids buy a deposit to buy a home, or just cope with the cost of living increasing. So to finish off, we understand that a development can't please everybody. We understand and appreciate there's different views, but we do know, however, that this project does deliver on the local planning strategy, where the council, after community consultation, wanted 250 new dwellings. That's one thing we know for sure, and we also know for sure there is hundreds of locals that will want to move on into a development like this. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your combined deputation. I'll now go to questions from Commission members. Commissioner Lakey.
Thank you, Chair. I've got 2 questions, and the question's coming from a couple of deputations. One of them is around the shadowing, and maybe if the architect can just verbalise it. I've read all the documents, but one of the comments was that the shadow studies are not compliant, and I wonder if you could just clarify that, please.
Thank you, Commissioner Lakey. I can confirm that they are completely compliant. So to the south, on winter solstice at 12 p.m, there is a 2% overshadow on that neighbour, which is well below, which is where it is very much compliant. And to the west, in midwinter, by 10 a.m, the pools of the neighbours are back in full sun. So if you look at all the overshadowing studies that we've supplied the SJU, like the overshadowing based on the massing, based on detailed feedback and collaboration with the State Design Review Panel, works very well.
And if I
Summer,
may,
you have a much higher
Excuse
sun
me.
aspect.
Thank you. Go ahead.
So in summer, when you probably want to use that pool, even at 8 in the morning, you're still getting light in there, because essentially the azimuth of the sun is so much higher, so the building does not affect it.
Thank you. Commissioner Lakey, any further questions?
just a follow-up question, Chair, and also regarding traffic, and particularly traffic on Brompton Road. One of the other deputations raised concerns about that. I wonder if you could provide some clarity, please.
Yeah, I was very interested to hear that the comment from the resident about Brompton Road.
Would you mind moving the microphone just a little bit closer? Thank you. I think you have to talk very closely. Thank you.
Sorry. I was very interested to hear that comment from the resident about traffic growth on Brompton Road. I wasn't aware of that. I wasn't expecting that, and but thinking about it while sitting there, listening to the other presentations, I realised the intersection analysis that we've done for the roundabout at Hale and Brompton, that northern leg is not the critical leg. It has more spare capacity than the rest of the roundabout does. It can cope with that additional traffic growth. So that is not it's not a fatal flaw by any sense.
Thank you. This is a time for questions between the Commission and the deputies. Please refrain. Commissioner Lakey, anything further?
No, thank you. That's fine. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Hall.
Thank you, Chair. Earlier we heard about concerns around western boundary and privacy, and I see in the report on page 34 there's commentary around the response, and it does mention that final screening details have not been provided. So I just wanted to ask what was intended to be the final screening details.
Thank you, Commissioner Hall. Are you talking about the taller building elements on the western face? Is that correct?
Yes.
The elevations clearly show where those screens are and how they cover those balconies, but I would highlight that closest neighbour, there's at least a 34-metre green belt between balconies and any boundary. So I'm not sure exactly what you're referring to there, sorry.
So just for clarity, if I may, Chair, that there is a condition 8 that's recommended, and that refers to details being provided of visual privacy. So I just wanted to get that clarity on what you're intending to have as the final detail.
Yeah, so we typically have sliding screens with operable louvers within them, so you can deal with western light and privacy, and so you can look straight towards the ocean rather than down towards any potential neighbours. When it gets closer within the podium, you've got solid balustrades, you've got brick breeze screens throughout there, which are picked up through those elevations. So it's very much a considered part of the built form.
Thank you. And Chair, I do have another question, if I may.
Yes, go ahead.
So we have heard there's been considerable points made about the height. I'm just wondering, what would be the impact if the height was reduced, even if it was by a couple of stories?
So, I mean, beyond not being able to achieve the targets and potentially making the project unfeasible, you would have to essentially put that volume somewhere else. So if you put it towards the southern building, then you'd start to overshadow those southern neighbours more. So basically what we're trying to do is load up as much as possible on the north so we can reduce the southern building as much as possible, which helps out overshadowing to both the west and to the south.
Okay, thank you. And Chair, I do have one final question.
Yes, thank you.
So I'm just curious to know if it's been considered or if there's any plans to have any social or public housing included in this development.
No, it's not.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Herron.
Thank you, through the chair. I think the first question may well be directed best to Ben, but there's obviously the discussion and the initial process around the local development plan and an associated process. Can you just talk us through in terms of obviously that didn't proceed, why that was the case, and can you also talk to any engagement processes that were undertaken as part of that?
Certainly, thank you, Commissioner. With regard to a local development plan, what we have here is a development that is being undertaken in relation to a single site comprising the entire neighbourhood centre. It's being undertaken by a single entity in a single stage and not in a staged manner. So there's no planning purpose served by adding another layer of assessment in the form of a local development plan or a precinct structure plan. What you would have then is essentially the same proposal, the same built form outcome that is being sought, but you would be assessing it based on much, much less information. So the development application that's in front of you today has, frankly, reams of backgrounds papers to it. It has multiple revisions of design. It has review by the State Design Review Panel. It's got more than a year of assessment by the SDAU. There's an incredible level of detail provided there. If you're assessing a built form that is the same in the form of a local development plan with only massing models to assist you, you're fighting with one hand tied behind your back.
Thank you. Through the chair, just a follow up to that, because and that all makes sense to me, except for the fact that it was apparently suggested that it was going to be undertaken. So that was really the point to that. So I'm comfortable with the response, however. The second one is in relation to the access to Hale Road. There is the question in terms of that it apparently needs to cross a section of reserve. Is there confirmation and comfort that that is able to be achieved in order to obviously achieve the traffic outcome?
Yeah, thanks. So we did go through a pretty extensive due diligence process with that, and in dealing with the town of Cambridge, they've agreed to access easements across the Spite Strip, which separates the property from Hale Road, and the town's also supported the roundabout, so both vehicle access and pedestrian access is covered off through those instruments, and so it's pretty well thought through for now.
Thank you, and excuse me, Chair, but if there was one final question I have, and that may be directed best to Mr. Blackburn or otherwise, but you've obviously made reference to other developments and the proportion of local buyers and the expressions locally that have occurred to date. So based on that experience, you would expect what proportion of the purchases to be within that 5 kilometre radius that you refer to?
Look, obviously there's a range of designs within a project to appeal to a different range of markets, but the predominant one is local baby boomer downsizers. That's only about 70%, somewhere between 65 and 75% of every development of similar projects in similar areas with a similar demographic are 65 to 75% baby boomer downsizers, where the kids have either left home or will potentially move out of home soon, and they're thinking ahead, because obviously there's a 2 or 3 year time frame. They think ahead of time, and also all of their money's trapped in their home, and they sort of, or majority of their wealth is trapped in their home, and wanting to free up some of that to reduce debt or enjoy life.
And I'll just add to that, so as a reference point, at the Grove residences, 80% of buyers came from within a 500 metre radius.
Thank you, Commissioner Herron. I'll go to Commissioner Sandry now.
Thank you. So I just had some questions just in regards to the neighbourhood centre allocation under the draft or under the local planning strategy. Just to clarify, there's a mention consistently around 250 dwellings. Do you accept that the maximum was 250 and the minimum was 200?
Well, the advice we've been given is that there aren't limits per se, so it isn't a maximum of 250, it's guidance. And then, I mean, in terms of built form controls, there aren't really any for the site. So the way we understand the process is that the local planning strategy sets out objectives and what it wants to achieve, which is a range of 200 to 250, not a maximum, not a minimum, but to provide a built form outcome that can be assessed through whichever planning process it goes through to see if it's an appropriate application for the site.
Thank you. I'll just maybe start with the design, just in terms of the deputation. Thank you, Jimmy, for the deputation. You stepped through the different massinations in terms of massing on the site. How many, like in terms of the 4-tower proposal, the 3-tower proposal, etc., how many of those did the SDRP consider?
So we presented all options to them.
Okay.
So we presented the entire history within that first DRP session, and they were of the view, similar to us, that our approach was the best outcome for the site, all things considered.
And in terms of the SDRP, so the 2-tower was the main consideration through the process?
Correct.
Yeah. And maybe this is for Ben's consideration, just under State Planning Policy 4.2, the Activity Centre Policy, it has reference to neighbourhood centre. And I just wonder, how do you substantiate that this development satisfies the elements within that policy?
Sure. Thank you, Commissioner. With regard to the SPP 4.2, the State Planning Policy for activity centres, it provides general guidance for activity centres. And in terms of the retail floor space, what's being proposed is entirely consistent with what you would expect for a neighbourhood centre. In fact, it's a fairly small neighbourhood centre. You then have to look to the local planning strategy, which provides very specific guidance about the dwelling yield that is targeted for that site, that's expected. And that is not what you would expect with a generic standard neighbourhood centre. It is a higher dwelling yield than is a standard neighbourhood centre. And so that reflects that the town has specific ambitions for this site. So the general planning principle of the specific overriding the general means that you take that guidance about the specific intentions for this site over the general provisions that apply to neighbourhood centres throughout the state.
And just so I understand, so in terms of interpretation, is that 250 up to 250 dwellings, or however you want to determine it under the strategy, was that over a precinct area or this subject site?
The LPS is actually pretty grey on that, and it doesn't provide clear guidance. So there is an argument that could be made that the 250 dwelling target, note not a maximum, it's the target for the site, is intended to be spread across the entirety of the precinct, so including the other 2 lots, the lots with the 8 villas and the church lot. Now, counter to that argument though, you then, if you look at LPS 2, draft LPS 2 that was advanced by the town of Cambridge, that designates those 2 sites as R30 under LPS 2. So I would suggest that in fact that suggests the town does not have ambitions for those sites to be containing a great deal of density, because both of those sites are about 3,000 square metres each. So at R30, each of them has the potential to yield 10 dwellings. Now, the villa site has 8 on it already, so you've got a net gain of 2 dwellings there, and the church site has 1 dwelling on it. So you've got a net gain of 9 dwellings there. So what the town, according to their local planning strategy 2, was expecting was another 11 dwellings on that site, on those 2 sites. So, all right, so arguably then, that takes our total yield for the precinct to 258 dwellings above the 250 that's targeted. I think it's negligible difference, and I think you'd agree with that, and I think I'd return then to the fact that the town is on track to hit half of its target for 2026. So I don't think those 8 additional dwellings that LPS 2 contemplates are going to tip the balance in terms of traffic or density or anything like that in the neighbourhood.
Thank you. And I'll ask a similar question as I did to a previous deputy. As you're aware, the Commission has to consider the broader impact on the social, environmental and economic elements of a development. And as I understand, the town of Cambridge currently owns the land. What certainty is there that the development will proceed if approved by the Commission?
Yeah, I'd love to give everybody a whole lot of certainty, but like I was saying before, what we put forward is an economically viable development, and that's the first thing we need to come up with. So in terms of purchasing land, I mean, we've gone through all that in a contract with the town, so the town's consented to the application itself. It'll be assessed. If there's an approval today, we'd like to go on and proceed with the development. We've done everything we can to make sure it is ready to go, but there's still a few more hoops to jump through after that. But importantly, this is a design which is viable. We have been talking a lot about this 6-storey version or different heights and so on, but the problem with those things is once you take out all of the daylight, building separation, privacy, amenity that comes with building separation that we've got in this design, it becomes far less economically viable. Viability costs, they are the number one thing to try and overcome at the moment. So, we think it's got a great chance of going, but there's a lot to go through still.
Thank you. And just my final question. So I guess you can't provide certainty, but you would have a programming. When would you anticipate that when would you like to commence development?
Yeah, so the target would be to commence construction within 12 months of the development approval. And then there's roughly 2.5 years to construct it. We'd like to have people moving in pretty soon after that.
Thank you.
Perhaps then I could just ask a question leading on from that. You have requested an extension of significant commencement from the recommended 36 months to 48 months on the basis of that response. Is it really necessary?
Yeah, it's probably following on from what I just said then. So the way the process works for us, we're a bit different to other sectors, is that with an approval it gives us a certainty to invest more time and energy into detailed documentation. It is a large building. It has different components, not just residential. It has a serious component of car parks, infrastructure, retail, commercial. That takes quite a bit of time to design and document to a point where we could engage with the builder. You might have seen recently that the build market at the moment is very difficult, so that's taking a prolonged time, which is an overhang from COVID. The stimulus that went through then has had these knock-on effects that has made the construction market quite difficult. So most projects we're coming across like this does take a slightly prolonged time to get that surety. Financiers require that. So yeah, it is something that we're requesting on that basis. It's more of a bit of a safety net. We'd like to think we'll be getting going a lot sooner than that, but to give other people confidence, whether it's financiers, buyers, other people like that, having the spectre of an approval that might lapse quite soon is a difficulty in making sure these things are economically viable and we can proceed with them.
Thank you. Commissioner Hall. Oh, sorry, I was going to Commissioner Bennett first and then I'll come to you, Commissioner Hall.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the deputation, and some of my questions have been covered already. So just while we're on the proposed or conditions and then the comments that have been provided by yourselves and questions perhaps for Ben, are there any that you would like to draw our attention to in your deputation package that you submitted? Bearing in mind we've already had some comments on the timeframe condition.
Certainly, thank you, Commissioner. Look, we've submitted a list of conditions that we have requested modifications be made to. There's a few, but there's not too many, we hope. We've provided in that summary an explanation of why we're seeking that modification. There's a bit of a recurring theme, I guess, that I will draw your attention to is the number of post-completion assessment reports that are being called for by the conditions. And the issue with that is that that then requires us right at peak debt, peak demand for occupancy permits, right when everything is trying to come together for the development, to have consultants available, able to attend the site, able to prepare their reports, and able to do all these things right when we need to get clearances from the SDAU and the Town of Cambridge. We are happy to provide these items that are required by the conditions, unless we've indicated otherwise. But it's these post-completion reports that have the potential to add significant delays at a critical point. What we would say is that those items are in fact addressed by the certification process of a building permit and by the occupancy permit process. And Jimmy can probably answer a little bit more about that. But that is one of the ones where we have requested what I'll call Part B of a number of conditions be removed, and that's generally relating to the post-completion assessment by those consultants.
Thank you. So just a follow-up question. So Jimmy, you presented the alternate built form layout, and layouts. I assume all of those capture the same number of dwellings as what you're proposing in the current proposal?
That is correct.
Yep. And we've heard a number of comments today around a 6-storey outcome as per the local planning strategy. I acknowledge that none of the scenarios you put forward went down that path. Could you talk to the design concepts that you've seen as part of the local planning strategy with the 6 storeys and how 6 storeys could play out on the site, and potentially if that would be viable or not?
Yeah, and I think the diagram provided by the city, showed a fully built-out podium covering the entire site of 2 storeys, and then a series of clusters. But they would not be able to accommodate that many apartments in a way that would be, one, compliant with Design WA and SBP 7.3, provide any sort of quality of amenity for end users and residents. You would not be able to retain any trees, provide any public space. It's going to be a really poor outcome, which would be unapprovable through any state design review process.
Sure. Thank you. And my final question, I think, as I'm looking at my list, a final question just around, and maybe this is from Matthew or Paul, but just around those commercial tenancies and any confidence you have in filling those tenancies and likely time frame to do that.
Yeah, so we've done quite a bit of work in advance on that. So what we normally do is look to secure the larger tenancies. So we have a partner there for what I call the major anchor. So it's the larger portion of the ground floor. That's fundamental to making sure this thing is, again, economically viable, and the work we've done to make sure we can get started within that 12-month timeframe I spoke about. But it's a bit of a mixture. So we don't just go for the larger tenancies. We try to have a good diversity between this boutique supermarket that we've been talking about, but also smaller hospitality venues, which might be, typically it's a mum and dad who run a cafe, that sort of thing. They come in a little bit later into the picture, but we try to bed it down with the larger ones. We do have quite a bit of interest. The retail sustainability report goes to a lot of detail around there's a severe lack of supply of similar quality offering in the area, and there's quite a bit of demand. So a lot of that's been calculated and balanced out, and likewise we've been met with quite a bit of interest for proponents who would like to operate on the site.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Commissioner Hall.
Thank you, Chair. Earlier we heard a deputation expressing concern around the construction period and just wanting some contact details, or are you able to provide some comfort or some clarity that will be able to occur, that nearby residents will be able to liaise with somebody during the construction phase if this does proceed?
Yeah, sure. So I think they're very understandable comments and concerns, but a project like this would be undertaken by a Tier 1 contractor. We've actually done a couple of them now. Before starting any work, including demolition, a series of pre-condition reports is undertaken across all the neighbouring properties. I think that's a really important step, and I encourage everyone to participate and have that report completed. And that would then assist through the demolition and construction activity for around 2 years. As far as contact goes, before any construction would commence, there'd be a construction management plan provided by the head contractor. That goes into a lot of detail about how a building would be constructed, the traffic, all the temporary works. Absolutely, there is a contact number available for at all times for someone from the contractor. Likewise, there's always a contact within us as the developer. They contact us pretty regularly. We like to build up a pretty strong relationship with the people. It's not all about just complaints and dust and noise. It's how can we work better in the area with local community who are living in that spot. At the same time, we'll be pretty good neighbours for a couple of years, and we'll definitely make ourselves available as well as the contractor.
Thank you. I've just got another question.
Commissioner Hall, I think we've got a further response, if you wouldn't mind.
Sorry?
We have a further response on that, if you wouldn't mind.
Thank you. I just wanted to add, and if you would have noticed on those basement plans, we've pulled away any of the retaining from those eastern boundaries, and obviously on the west we've got significant buffer to adjacent neighbours, so it's been very deliberate to pull any structures away from those boundaries to reduce any risk.
Thank you. Go ahead, Commissioner Hall.
Thank you, Chair. And look, we did also hear earlier some discussion around trees and retention of trees. And I had raised that the town does have a tree local planning policy, and that's only fairly recently adopted, I believe in December last year. So after this has been lodged, are you intending to work with the town to meet their policy requirements if this was to proceed?
I mean, it's fairly new policy, but I will say that as soon as we're involved in the site, the first thing we did was we recognised how important the park is. So the whole design is conceived around retaining as many trees as possible. Some trees are being removed. They're the ones that are currently located on the car park. They're typically bottle brushes, that sort of thing. But what we haven't gone into detail today is how much the design responds to the major mature trees in the area. So we like those trees as much as anybody. The last thing we want to do is see them removed. So yes, we'll definitely be working with the town to preserve as many of those as we can. The design itself at the moment preserves the major mature trees. I've said that repeatedly to anyone who's asked the question. But Jimmy, you might want to add a little bit around the policy, but again, it's pretty new policy and it was brought in after we prepared the design.
I guess there's just a couple of things to add in terms of overall tree protection, but also where there's trees beyond our site, we've pulled back away from them so we can actually protect their roots. So there's been a long consideration about how to get the best outcomes for those existing trees, but also on complete build out, there's going to be a significant canopy increase across the site, which is consistent with what they're trying to achieve.
Thank you. And Chair, I do just have one final question. So in the officer's report, recommended condition number 9, it talks about requiring a minimum of 50 apartments for silver level accessibility requirements and 5% or 13 dwellings for platinum level accessibility requirements. Could you confirm just how many that you'll be providing and just practically what are the differences between silver and platinum?
Thanks, Ryan. Yeah, so we're achieving 20% silver compliance for this project. Basically, that entails wider corridors, larger doors, the ability to retrofit handrails and things like that to those apartments for people with limited mobility. And that exceeds the requirements in SPP 7.3. So the requirement, one of the requirements, one of the ways to achieve that is to achieve 20% or higher silver certification apartments, which is what we're doing.
And just to clarify, the other part of my question was just the difference between platinum and to confirm how many would be provided platinum level.
So there's a choice essentially under SPP 7.3, which is 20% silver or 5% platinum. It's an either or scenario. So we've opted to go for the 20% silver.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Adair.
Thank you, Chair. Jimmy, this is possibly for you. There's been a lot of talk today about the character of the area, and I noted in your presentation that you did go through the material palette and what you've drawn from that. This, if it was to be approved, will be quite a landmark development, very noticeable around the area. Could you provide us with a bit more of an outline of your approach to character and how you see this fitting into the character of the area?
Absolutely. Thank you, Commissioner Adair. City Beach is famous both as a garden suburb, but also for its modernism, and particularly mid-century modernism. And that goes from beachside kiosks, brilliant work done by Fords and Fitz back in the day, and they're very much sculptural concrete, off-form concrete buildings. So where we've got a freestanding building, that takes on those cues, takes on the organic nature of it, takes on the off-form concrete of it, very much textural in the way that It's expressed vertically around walling, around the extent of glazing, and also the ability for it to open up when weather permits, which is in City Beach a lot of the time. The next layer that we looked at was all the kind of grouped housing that exists throughout City Beach, and you get a lot of those kind of nuts and berries 70s buildings where you've got character brickwork and terracotta roof tiles. So that then represents the podium. So you'll see within all those renders, you've got a 3-storey podium which has extensive face brickwork, detailing breeze screens and hit and miss screens, which really talk to that history which still exists within City Beach. On either bookends of that, facing Hale Road and the park, we talk to the larger scale modernist houses. So very much oven housework. There's a whole litany of really amazing work in City Beach, and they're big sculptural expressive buildings. And then finally we have the above podium buildings. And so here we were looking at Holy Spirit Church, which again is a wonderful example of Australian vernacular modernism. But it's a very expressive one in its brickwork, but also its big organic shapes, and it's proud of its bigness, to answer your question. And I think people shouldn't be scared about height. They should be scared about getting bad buildings. And this is not a bad building, this is a particularly excellent building. And that's why we're expressing all that organic nature of it, so that, yes, you'll see it, but it'll be a very beautiful landmark.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions, Commissioners? Thank you. I think all of mine have been covered because it's been quite detailed questioning, so thank you for that. Thank you very much for your deputation this afternoon. Just also to note that we have received written deputations from Dr Victoria Ripley, Myra Agnew, Christopher Murray, Catherine Walden, Franca Salatena, Marguerite Alexaria and Blake Stacey. I also just need to note that any photos or film taken today is not permitted. This is a formal meeting of the WAPC and it cannot be publicly shared or published. So if you have taken a photo, please do bear that in mind. We will now move to item 3, which is presentation of key issues by the Department of Planning, Lands and Heritage. You've heard them referred to throughout the meeting as the SDAU, and the presenter is Paula De Perna, who is the Planning Director of the State Development Assessment Unit. Welcome, Paula.
Thank you, Chair. The proposed $200 million development that's before the Commission today is for the redevelopment of the Ocean Village Centre, adjoining car park and a portion of the Kilper Court Road Reserve. The proposed redevelopment involves the demolition of the existing buildings and the construction of a new mixed-use centre comprising of 247 residential apartments and a range of commercial uses. What the Commission has it before it today is to decide whether the application and the current design of the building have been able to adequately address the matters raised during the technical assessment, design review and public and stakeholder consultation. While the Commission may not be bound by the requirements of the local planning framework in accordance with Part 17 of the Planning and Development Act, it must pay due regard to the submissions received during consultation and the following matters: the purpose and intent of the local planning scheme, ensure orderly and proper planning and preservation of the locality, the need to facilitate development responding to the economic effects of COVID-19 and any relevant state planning policies. While some submissions have expressed concerns in relation to the current impacts of COVID-19, suggesting that there are no economic effects to respond to, the Commission is advised that this aspect is a specific consideration detailed in the Planning and Development Act for significant development proposals under Part 17, for which the Commission must give due regard to. As we can see from the stakeholder and public submissions, there are concerns of the proposed development. It's evident that a lot of time, effort and consideration was given to the preparation of submissions received from the community on this application. All of these have been considered in the assessment and ultimately will form part of the Commission's consideration today. The public advertising was undertaken in accordance with the established processes for Part 17. The extent of the detail and supporting information that were provided to fully explain people's reasoning for support or opposition could not be captured in the agenda. For the purposes of reporting, these issues were distilled under key headings as set out in the report. However, for the benefit of the public, I can confirm that the full content of all submissions made were provided to Commission members, so the Commission is not solely relying on the summary of issues. The consideration and assessment has focused on the matters and the details raised in each of the submissions to ensure that they were appropriately captured. We have seen and heard today that some of the concerns relating to the application relate to the planning framework, building height, bulk and scale, privacy, design and character. State agencies have provided comment and relevant conditions of approval have been suggested in relation to a number of matters. It is to also advise that the Department of Transport has informed the Commission that the revised proposal, the subject of this report, has adequately addressed the matters that they had raised in their earlier submission. The Town of Cambridge was consulted and is not supportive of the application as detailed in their deputation today. The matters raised by the Town and public submissions received have been considered and captured in the Department's report. Just like to flag a number of key issues that have been flagged in the deputations today. In regards to the Cambridge Endowment Lands Act, the submissions today outline concerns regarding the ability for a decision to be made in the context of the Act. Whilst earlier reference was made to the impact of the Act in the context of a Part 11B proposal, the application before the Commission has been made under Part 17 of the Act. The Department's position remains that no provision of the Act, the Cambridge Endowments Land Act, would prevent the Commission from making a planning decision under Part 17. In relation to the need for a local development plan, as we're well aware, there is no local development plan for the Ocean Village precinct. The Commission is required to determine the application under Part 17, and any suggestion or representations made outside of this process does not bind the Commission and cannot fetter the exercise of their discretion to determine this application on its planning merits. The key issues for the consideration of a development proposal in the absence of a local development plan include the consideration of the built form, scale and intensity, environmental considerations and interface with existing development, and arrangements relative to vehicle and pedestrian access within the centre zoned land. It's considered these matters are capable of being addressed and have been considered in the context of this application pursuant to clause 56.2 of the local planning scheme regulations. In regards to building height and plot ratio, concerns have been expressed that the height does not fit in with the current context and character. A number of submissions also highlight that the development should not exceed the 6-storey concept that arose from community engagement process undertaken by the town. As part of the assessment of this application, the formulation and adoption of council's preferred outcome is not captured within a properly prepared and adopted local planning framework, and therefore can only be considered as an adopted position. Other submissions have suggested that the design is not in harmony with the low-scale character of City Beach and is more in keeping with a highly urbanised locality. While these and other comments relating to height are noted, the Commission could form the view that these are sufficient to form a basis not to support the development. The assessment has considered the extent to which both the applicable existing statutory planning framework instruments as well as the proposal itself demonstrates alignment with the general and specific objectives of the Ocean Village Centre as contained in the town's endorsed local planning strategy. This approach is considered consistent with the principles of orderly and proper planning, given the endorsement of the local planning strategy represents the most current and contemporary guiding instrument in relation to the site. Whilst overshadowing has been raised as an impact of the scale of the development, the proposal presented meets the acceptable outcomes of the RCodes in relation to the extent of overshadow. The Department has taken an independent assessment verifying the footprint and areas indicated on the applicant's analysis and is satisfied that it adequately demonstrates the actual impact. The centre's location largely within the middle of an existing street block makes it somewhat isolated and distinct from its low-scale residential settings. Therefore, from a streetscape cohesiveness and broader locality perspective, it's considered that it provides sufficient opportunity for the proposal to be considered and assessed on its merits. The State Design Review Panel has reviewed the proposal on 3 occasions. Some of the details that are required as part of the refinement have been addressed through revised plans, and the State Design Review Panel recognised the intensification had the potential to sit appropriately within its context, commercial activation and opportunity for dwelling diversity. Consideration of visual impact of the proposal, in particular on views of the coastline, has been considered and addressed through the department's report. Questions in regards to the town's recently adopted tree removal policy has formed part of the department's assessment on the proposal. It's been established that the policy does not apply to the context of this application, as it only relates to residential zone land. In terms of transport and access, vehicle access, whilst the public raised concerns in relation to traffic impacts, has been assessed by both the department's officers and the town. To address matters raised as part of the preliminary assessment, the applicant has submitted additional traffic surveys and addendums as part of their traffic impact assessment. The department's assessment of the proposal has included a comprehensive capacity assessment of the surrounding network and has found that the road network will continue to perform efficiently at both the intersection and mid-block level. It is, however, observed that the separation of access from Hale Road and Brompton Road will assist in sharing the traffic load, with traffic volumes on Brompton Road for the residential development relocating the commercial access and larger vehicles to Hale Road. It's noted that the Brompton Road traffic volumes was assessed by the department and included a 2% incremental growth, which found that there's still sufficient capacity within that road network to accommodate the development. One of the written deputations did make reference to electric vehicle charging. The proposal does provide for a 5-star Green Star certified outcome, and a condition in relation to EV vehicles has been included. Concerns have been raised in regards to existing infrastructure with the capacity of the development to be accommodated. However, detailed road network assessment, as well as advice from utility service providers, has indicated that the proposal can be adequately serviced by existing infrastructure networks. In relation to concerns during the construction process, the clearance of condition process is overseen by the department following the development being conditionally approved by the Commission. The process is comprehensive and guided by a series of phasing of construction during the phasing of the construction of the project. Any concerns in relation to compliance with conditions can be made in writing to the department, and ongoing concerns during the construction phase itself will be managed through a construction management plan as listed in a recommended condition. It has been brought to the department's attention that the current wording of condition 11 relating to the dilapidation report has omitted the Ocean Breeze units on Strata Plan 16831. It is recommended by the department that condition 11C have part 5 added to include reference to that. A copy of that condition has been provided to Commission members. In relation to the other matters relative to condition modifications, as suggested by the applicant, the department's response has been provided to Commission members. I'm happy to take any questions in regards to those. In conclusion, the application and its content of every single submission has been thoroughly assessed, having regard to the matters contained in Section 276 of the Planning and Development Act. As the report outlines and concludes, it has been assessed that the proposal can be reasonably approved under the framework provided for under Part 17, with conditions imposed to control the final quality of the development and those matters that need controlling on an ongoing management basis. It's assessed that the proposed development is generally consistent with state and local planning objectives and presents a design that will positively contribute towards the amenity of the locality. Having taken everything into account, it's considered that the application can be supported and is recommended for conditional approval.
Thank you very much, Director. We'll now go to questions. So, Commission members, are there questions for Director? Go ahead, Commissioner Bennett.
Thanks, Paola, for the thank you, Paola, for the presentation. So just a couple of questions. The medical centre use, I understand, is in ex-use under the current scheme. Could you just talk to the permissibility of that land use under the draft local planning scheme as you understand it, and also the conditioning in relation to specificity of non-residential land uses on the plan? Thank you.
Yeah. Through the chair, the medical centre use under the draft LPS 2 is identified as a discretionary use, as a D use, and therefore could be contemplated in future. The exercise of discretion relative to the X use is available to the Commission under Part 17, but having regard to its probability is a consideration moving forward.
Sure.
The second part.
Thank you. And would you like to comment in relation to specifying the non-residential land uses in the conditions of approval rather than relying on what's annotated on the plan?
Yes.
Sure of my question.
Yes. So current condition 3, as it reads, does make reference to the land uses or the uses as depicted on the development plans date stamped. There is the opportunity to specify land uses in relation to the tavern, small bar and recreation private for reasons that really speak to the potential impacts that some of those may have relative to amenity. The recreation private land use also speaks to ensuring that there's ground floor activation, which is a fundamental principle in terms of ground plane, both from a passive recreation perspective and passive surveillance perspective. So there is the ability for condition 3 to be modified, to be broken down into 2 parts, with tavern, small bar, medical centre and office being referenced specifically as depicted on the development plans, and shop, restaurant, large format retail and liquor store, ensuring that there's activation at the ground floor plane. A copy of a condition has been provided to members, Commission members, for their consideration.
Can I just ask, has a copy of this been provided to the applicant and have they given a view on this?
No, it hasn't, no.
Thank you.
May I ask a follow-up question,
Yes.
Chair? Thank you. So just going to conditions and the question that I asked the applicant as well, just around their comments in relation to the conditions that were submitted as part of their deputation request. The response from the applicant around those conditions was a concern about the Part B of some of the conditions around prior to occupation and the potential delays that may cause, and particularly at a financially constrained time. Are you able to comment on those Part Bs of the conditions about prior to occupation?
Yes, through the chair. Some of the advice notes, the clearance of conditions process itself is quite a comprehensive process, which is sort of mapped out through a matrix process. Where the department has worked with the proponent on clearance of conditions through phasing has allowed for different parts of the development to progress forward through an interim clearance process. That doesn't prevent the development from moving along, and it really speaks to satisfying the condition for that relevant part of the proposal that clearance has been sought.
Thank you. That's it for my questions.
Thank you. Commissioner Hall.
Thank you, Chair. I've just got 2 questions, if I may. The first question is in relation to traffic, and we heard earlier that the traffic, the officers who look after traffic at the town of Cambridge were specifically consulted I know the City of Stirling was referred to, but were the traffic engineers at the City of Stirling consulted?
Through the chair, the City of Stirling was consulted as part of the referral process. Whether the officers who collated the city's response back to the department had undertaken their own internal referrals, I'm unable to confirm. But ordinarily, from experience, there has been sort of internal discussions within the local governments prior to formal response being provided to the department.
Okay, thank you. My other question is, we did hear earlier from deputies who expressed a concern around the points of view not being heard or anything done about it. And I do see in the report there's a summary of the public submissions, and then there's a confidential attachment of 399 pages, which I've read. Do you think the level of community consultation has been performed adequately?
Through the chair, the consultation process that's been established for Part 17 is not dissimilar to processes, development assessment processes undertaken by local governments. They are largely informed by the local planning scheme regulations. And so in terms of the extent of consultation that's undertaken, in this instance, the consultation is considered more than adequate. The radius for this proposal was extended to 500 metres, where the regulations ordinarily speak to a 200-metre consultation radius. 3 signs were erected. The 3 signs were selected on the basis that it was to capture the frequently accessed areas through the reserve. The department worked with the town of Cambridge to ensure that the sign installations were considered appropriate so that it maximised potential exposure and opportunity for submissions to be made.
Thank you.
Commissioners, any further questions?
Yes.
Commissioner Sandry?
Thank you. I just have a question in relation to SPP 4.2 activity centres. In terms of the bulk and scale of the proposal, is it consistent with the neighbourhood centre?
Through the chair, not typically. I suppose a neighbourhood centre is informed by its location, and so you would need to consider the location of the centre and how it's intended to be serviced, the size of that centre in and amongst its setting. In this instance, the setting does lend itself to a different type of typology in the department's view, and that's sort of detailed in the report.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions, Commissioners? Okay, thank you very much, Paola. We will then move to the item. There are 2 options on the table for Commission members to consider. There's the recommended motion for approval with conditions and the alternate motion for refusal. I will go first to the recommended motion for approval to see whether there is a mover and seconder. That is item 4.1 of this agenda. Is there a mover for the motion as recommended? Moved by Commissioner Bennett, seconded by Commissioner Herron. Do you wish to speak to it?
Yes, I'm happy to speak to it. So I appreciate the deputations today and the time taken, and I've carefully reviewed the officer's report, the development plans and the submissions. I recognise the significance of the project and the importance of careful consideration of the proposal and the views heard today. I do support the proposal as presented to us, potentially subject to some modifications to conditions which we can later discuss. In my view, the height is appropriate given the information that we've heard today. I recognise the largely...
Thank you, everybody, please. I ask you to refrain from commenting. Thank you.
I recognise the largely parkland interface and support the taller centre building over the shorter low-rise option over the whole precinct and the visual impact of this. The LPS2 indicative design across the whole site with no vegetation retention and a very kind of blocky form is not a preferred outcome in my view. It does achieve the local planning strategy infill targets for the precinct, and the proposal provides a dwelling diversity in a largely suburban fabric with limited dwelling density. This is critical to provide accommodation for all household types. I have reviewed the overshadowing diagrams against the R code requirements. I visited the site and considered the visual impact. The surrounding vegetation provides screening at the lower levels, and yes, the building will be visible, but it reflects a maturing and growing form of Perth. I'm of the view that the built form is appropriate in the context. The proposed development will provide significant public benefit through additional local services and amenities and a significant amount of publicly accessible spaces, which I think was spoken to at around 34%. The site is highly suitable for density, being on a public transport route on Hale Road and in proximity to West Coast Highway. And also recognising the point, the site is of around 1.2 hectares. There aren't very many opportunities for density on sites of this size, so very careful consideration should be given. And I am mindful the site is unique and therefore doesn't necessarily create a precedent in future proposals. I do note the medical centre is an ex-use. This requires a commission discretion. It's not unusual for a medical centre to be located in a local centre. There's many examples of this. I do support the landscape strategy of vegetation retention and significant planting on structure and the net canopy increase and retention of the tuats and the potential for future enhancement of the tuat woodland TEC and potential and landscape rehabilitation for the broader landscape. In my view, the comprehensive DA does negate the need for a local development plan. It's a more pragmatic approach than avoiding an unnecessary duplication in the planning system, and this approach has been applied elsewhere. So it is for these reasons, Chair, that I support the proposal.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Herron, as the seconder, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Mirroring the items raised, I do state that like many planning situations, this is not a case of black or white, and did require very careful consideration. To me, the key items which did end up becoming determining my particular position on this was this notion, which I am an advocate of, is the fact that you have infill in this nodal form and that the preservation of those other areas is in fact a significant outcome which is derived from this. I do consider that height in its singular level is not the primary consideration and that it is around the overall design response. I do rely heavily on the feedback from the State Design Review panel as the experts in that particular area and do accept the position that has been put forward around the issues around overshadowing and the like. From another perspective, I would say that housing requirements, housing diversity and consideration of future requirements and generations is a key consideration that we are compelled to consider, and it is on that basis that I am happy to second this motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Herron. Opening up now to other commissioners to either discuss or to provide amendments. Commissioners.
I was going to discuss amendments, but I think Councillor Brooks may.
No, that's fine. You go.
Okay. Am I able to propose amendments?
Yes.
Now, thank you. So acknowledging the discussion that's been had around the conditions, I propose an amendment to, firstly going to the paper provided by the SDAU team, condition 3. Would you like me to read it out?
Yes, please.
Yep. So amending condition 3 to state the approved land uses for the development as defined under the Town of Cambridge Local Planning Scheme number 1 include Part A, tavern, small bar and recreation private land uses in the location shown and or annotated on the development plan A1.03 Rev D, medical centre on the development plan A1.02 Rev D, and office on the development plan A1.04 Rev D, and shop, restaurant, cafe and large format retail and liquor store on the ground floor level are to be maintain an active interface to public realm areas to the satisfaction of the WAPC.
Is there a seconder for the amendment? Seconded by Commissioner Brooks. Do you wish to speak to the amendment, Commissioner Bennett?
No further, given it was discussed in questions with the Director of State Development Assessment Unit.
Thank you. Are there any comments in relation to the amendment? Is there any dissent? The amendment is carried. Thank you. Thank you. Any further amendments?
So,
Commissioner Heron?
Well, through the chair, I just wanted to confirm that condition 11C is to be amended. I have got some notes here, but I think that there was something provided previously in terms of the wording that needed to include the property that hadn't been included.
Yes, that's right. It's C5, and the wording is that the Ocean Breeze units on Strata Plan 16831 on Lot 224, number 1, Kilper Court, City Beach.
Just to clarify, Chair, 244. I think you had stated 224, just for the record.
My apologies, 244. Thank you for the clarification.
I'm happy to second that, Chair.
That's been seconded by Commissioner Adair. Do you wish to speak to it, Commissioner Heron? I think you might, yes?
No, that's fine.
No,
I think it's been spoken to and is quite clear in terms of obviously it being oversight.
Thank you. Any further comments in relation to the amendment? Any dissent? That's carried. Thank you. Any further amendments, Commissioners?
Sorry, there was just the proposed amendment to condition 1 to extend the approval period from 36 to 48 months.
Okay, is there a seconder for this amendment? That's seconded by Commissioner Adair. Do you wish to speak to it, Commissioner Brooks?
No, only to say that it seems like there are reasonable reasons to allow for the extension to cover off on the difficulty getting building underway in the current market.
Thank you. Commissioner Adair, any comments?
I concur. The current market is very difficult and there's a lot of work to be done in that time period, so I think it's appropriate to give it that 48 months.
Commissioners, any further comments or any debate? No. Any dissent? That is carried. Thank you. Commissioners, are there any further amendments?
yes, Chair, this goes to condition 33 and its deletion of condition 33. The Director of State Development Assessment Unit referenced this in the discussion around the amended condition 3, and that the amendment to condition 3 as proposed would address the content of condition 33.
Thank you. So the amendment is to delete condition 33, given that we've now addressed condition 3. Is there a seconder? Yes. Yes, seconded by Commissioner Adair. Do you wish to speak to it?
No further, thank you.
Commissioner Adair? No. Any discussion? Any dissent? That's carried, thank you. Are there any further amendments? I see no hands in the air. So is there any further discussion on the item?
I'll speak to the item,
Thank you.
if I may. I think, as has been said by the mover and the seconder, this is not a black and white situation. It takes a lot of consideration, time spent on site, and consideration around multiple factors. As one of the deputies, Elizabeth Dern, correctly identified, there's no clear vision for the future character of this area. And when there's nothing clear, there becomes a void. And in my experience, that is inevitably filled. And in this case, it is being filled by the private sector because the town has not provided that guidance for the community. I believe that the response that has been provided to my question by Jimmy, the architect, in regard to character, is well considered and reflects the character of the existing city beach, which is quite remarkable in Perth. I think we're very lucky that a tier 1 architecture firm of this calibre is actually on this project and is able to and willing to look carefully at all of those elements. I do understand that height is an issue for community. This is across Perth. It's an element that Perth is grappling with, but it is a maturing city, and this is what will be becoming more and more, especially when you have an agreed position of nodal density as opposed to across the board. So for those reasons, I'm happy to support the motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Dare. Commissioner Lakey.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'd like to make a few comments as well, and really just to add and echo the comments from my fellow commissioners. I think a few points to emphasise. Amendment 31, when it was put forward, the community went very much against that to protect the style of the residents, and by doing that, you do have to bring density into the nodes, and I think this is one of the key nodes. I think the architect has done a good job working with the State Design Review Panel to look at all options, and clearly 6 stories would have been a suboptimal outcome. And by having tall, slender buildings, you're giving so much back in terms of open space and amenity and protection of trees. And I think they're very elegant buildings. And I think they provide vital housing options and vital amenity to the area. This has been lacking by opening up 250 dwellings. It does bring options for people to stay and downsize into the area, which currently isn't there. And I do know the process that's gone through with the State Design Review Panel with a significant input from the government architect and several highly regarded architects in Perth. This has been looked at in a lot of detail, and I'm very comfortable with, on balance, the outcome. So I'm happy to support the proposal.
Thank you, Commissioner Lakey. I'll now go to Commissioner Brooks.
Yeah, I just simply wanted to add, I've reflected long and hard on this proposal. I think the height is challenging in this location. However, on balance, the outcome that allows for maximised tree retention, extensive areas of deep soil, plenty of open space and a real connection to the surrounding landscape gives them a preferential outcome than would be achieved with a shorter, squatter building covering a vast amount more of the site. So therefore I will be supporting.
Thank you. Commissioners, any further comments? Commissioner Sandry.
Thank you, Chair. I have thought long and hard over this item and have been out to site on multiple occasions. The reality is that there's no strong strategic or statutory basis to determine the outcome on this site, and it really is left to the consideration of the documents in front of us. As those in the room today have noticed, I've asked questions regarding the strategy, the amount of dwellings in which it identifies, but again, a strategy is just an indication. It's not a measure in which it must be complied with. It is something to consider when informing a new scheme. This draft local planning scheme number 2, which does look at considering this site as a neighbourhood centre, has not yet been advertised and unfortunately is not seriously entertained. So therefore the weight in which it's provided is essentially very minimal, if any weight is provided to it at all. Then in terms of State Planning Policy 4.2 around activity centres, again, this is a guiding document, and this site in itself is actually quite unique insofar as it already has an existing buffer around it. Some 30-metre separation distances between the built form and adjoining residents. And I understand and appreciate the concerns raised by the residents in relation to visual privacy and overshadowing. However, the overshadowing matter I feel has been addressed appropriately, and in terms of separation, 30 metres for visual privacy I feel is appropriate and certainly above what is required under SPP 7.3. I do think that, it's difficult to grapple with height simply because in our view, or in the community's view, it will be, tall. 23 stories is tall. However, it is a slender building and it enables an open approach at the ground floor and a better design approach in terms of retention of trees, open space, and also providing back to the community through that ground floor activation and the tenancies alongside it. I think in that sense, and what was touched on by the architect in terms of the garden suburb, I think that theme actually flows into that ground floor podium levels. and certainly with the canopy coverage proposed on structure is a sensible outcome for the proposal. So on balance and what's been considered today, I will be supporting the proposal.
Thank you, Commissioner Sandry. I'll now go to Commissioner Hall.
Thank you, Chair. It is a very difficult decision to make because there's a lot of concerns. It's gut-wrenching if you don't like change and you don't like what you see, but every angle has been explored. Every avenue, I think exhaust has been a very thorough process. There's nothing more that I can see that we could do to improve the design for the site, so therefore I'll be supporting the recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. So that's every Commission member has spoken, and I appreciate you outlining your reasons for decision. I think it's important that the public understands how you have come to your views, and I would just like to express my thanks to my colleagues for doing so. I just would like to make some few comments as Chair, because I think it's important that I do acknowledge the incredible response that we've had through community consultation, with almost 1,500 submissions received from the community. As I mentioned at the outset of this meeting, all of your feedback was given verbatim for Commission members to read. We've had deputations today from various views. And I think that you've conducted yourselves in an incredibly respectful way through a meeting where I understand there's strong views in the room. So I just want to extend my respect back to you for the way in which you have conducted yourselves throughout this meeting. There has been significant consultation also through 11 state government agencies. In the report, it does state that the Department of Transport did not support this application, but I do just need to assure you that through the changes that have been made, that has changed, and the Department of Transport, along with Main Roads, is supportive from a traffic perspective. We've talked about the Cambridge Endowment Lands Act. We've heard from our Director, Paola De Perna. We've received legal advice as commissioners. We've heard from the town's director, who's also spoken to this being applicable to residential lands, and that purpose is primarily about consistency in dealing with residential dwelling roof colour and cladding. I think the issue of the local development plan is important. I have received many letters on this matter as in my role, and I understand that there were some expectations set around an LDP preceding a development application. I do acknowledge that. But statements or actions made by applicants or stakeholders are outside the remit of the WA Planning Commission, and the council's published decision to sell a portion of the site area was not subject to preparation of a local development plan. In any case, it is not a part of the planning considerations before us today. We do need to deal with the development application on its planning merits. What an LDP is designed to do has been well fleshed out in the agenda report, but primarily it goes to the standards applied to the built form, the scale, the interface with existing development, environmental considerations, vehicle access. These issues have all been dealt with in detail and considered extensively throughout this process. The other issue that local development plans often deal with is land assembly and lot coordination, but in this particular case, this has not been an issue given the land ownership. The current planning framework has been discussed in detail, and I thank the town for taking our many questions on this. We've talked about the local planning strategy and the dwelling targets contained therein. We've talked about the fact that the outcome of 6 stories was a decision that came later, a council decision more recent, which was not part of the local planning strategy consideration and is a standalone decision. We've talked about the fact that the town has not applied concepts to that, but we've also seen the applicant's architect outline a number of concepts which were taken through to the State Design Review Committee and discussed extensively in terms of impact to surrounding residents as well as livability for those within the building. We've touched on traffic, which has been an important issue. The Department of Education has indicated that they don't see any anticipated significant impact on student enrolment numbers at local schools. And the Design Review Committee has been very clear that whilst this is a landmark building, and I'm completely acknowledging the height here, that it is an opportunity for the town to deliver significant dwellings and community amenity to address infill targets of the town in a way that avoids that broader, lower density infill development which the garden suburbs have not been keen to take, and we've seen that through Amendment 31, which has also been discussed. So in terms of the height, I acknowledge the concern in the community. It's been expressed extremely well here today and through your town's representatives, Mayor Mack, also through your new member, as well as through your own consultation feedback. But I would just say to you, in the context that we've talked about in the local planning strategy and the town's approach to density, the nodal development that's been so clearly outlined today, that is something that the Commission must take into consideration in where the density does go in your community, if not broadly, then at the nodes. There are some unique features of the site. All Commission members, I believe, that have been able to have visited the site. I've personally walked the parkland buffer, seen the amazing canopy and vegetation and the separation of that sensitive interface with the group dwellings at the rear, and to the way in which the treatment of interface with the group dwellings and the church to the east. Because of this context, the building has been able to achieve acceptable outcomes of the R Codes Volume 2 in relation to visual privacy, in lay terms overlooking and overshadowing. It is seeking a 5-star Green Star sustainability outcome, which is a very high level of sustainability for built form. And we are seeing community benefits in the replacement of a dilapidated shopping centre. I think that that is a universal view, that this does need to be updated. It is not meeting its purpose. And we are seeing significant communal open space at the ground floor because of the height, including a playground, landscaped areas with seating and pedestrian connections through the development and connecting with the adjoining parkland with the retention of those very valuable tulip trees on site. So I do acknowledge that this is an outcome that many of you will be disappointed, but I do encourage you to consider the urban renewal, the high quality urban infill with what will be a high amenity outcome for the local community. And I hope that in time, as you see this constructed and you engage with it, that you can see that there are those community benefits embedded within this development. So for those reasons, I am supporting the development, and I thank you all for being here today. Given that we have all spoken, I will go back to the mover to see if you have any further comments.
No further comments, thank you,
No further comments. I will put the motion. Is there any dissent? That is carried. Thank you very much. If we move through the remainder of the agenda before us, just to update, there are some State Administrative Tribunal applications on renewable energy facility and Claysbrook Road for the concrete batching plants. Item 6, urgent or other business. Is there any commissioners? No. And so meeting closure. Thank you very much, members, for your attendance today. I will declare the meeting closed at 5:22 p.m.